Okay, here we go.
Yeah, we straight chillin', serial killing, pre-cold villains on the mic, got you reeling. 5-star rated from the floor to the ceiling. If you catch a 1-star, no time for feelings. Got a demon DJ on the ones and twos. By the name Beelzebub, so don't get confused. So grab a seat by the fire, roast them all over two, and prepare to hear the legend of the straight chilling crew.
What up, nerds, and welcome to another cartoonish episode of Straight Chilling, the weekly horror movie review show where you chill and we kill, slice, dice, and chop up yet another horror movie. My name's Bob. I'll be your host for the evening. This is episode number 342, recorded on Sunday, October 24th, 2021. Tonight, we're going to be talking about The Simpsons Treehouse of Horrors 5, 6, and 7. Before we get into it, let me introduce everyone else on the show. First up, calling in from South Korea, we got our boy, Soju. What's up, man?
What up? It's your boy, Uterbrotensteins.
It's a hell of a stain.
Yes, a delicious one from what I'm told.
Finger licking good. Last but not least, making his triumphant return to the show, we have our good friend, Warren Evans, aka at Bard of Darkness. Welcome back, man.
Hey guys, hey everybody, and I'm happy to be back. And I want you to know that my hand is currently stuck in a toaster. So look out for that.
I'm
You
sure
should get
it'll
that looked at.
all work out fine.
Yeah, man, thanks so much for returning. So this was something we did for the very first time last year. We talked about Simpsons Treehouse of Horror 1, 2, 3, and 4. Something a little bit different for us, and we were really excited to get you on the show last year as well as this year, Warren, because you are like a fucking Simpsons guru. You've got your own Simpsons podcast. If you guys are watching the behind the scenes video right now, you see Warren sitting in his Simpsons lair, just head to toe Simpsons. You know all there is to know, buddy. Why don't you let everybody know about your show and where they can find your stuff?
Hey, thanks a lot. You know, I'm like I said up top, I'm happy to be back. I'm happy to show off my stuff to those watching the video. You know, I really just have a problem, which is what everyone should know. So, you know, don't praise me too much. Something's probably just wrong with me. I'm dealing with that right now with my therapist. But no, if you're curious about the collection, you can go to Bard of Darkness on Instagram or Twitter and check it out. And if you want to hear me talk to Simpsons people, as well as people that just like The Simpsons, you can listen to Simpsons is Greater Than wherever you get your podcasts. And that will just give you enough Simpsons to, I mean, if you need more Simpsons after looking at my stuff and listening to that, then I'm worried about you. So let's talk.
Hey, Warren.
Simpson overload.
Once this episode's over, if you could go ahead and shoot that therapist info over to Bob real quick, I think that would really be helpful. He needs to get on the, I don't know if you know, but we track Bob's Blu-ray purchases to see if he could buy a jet ski instead of buying so many Blu-rays. Turns out he can.
Well, you know, so I asked my therapist, I said, when you saw The Room, was it a red flag? And she said, well, it was a flag. I don't know if it was red, but, you know, we're working on it. I'll definitely shoot that info over.
It's a yellow flag. I'm addicted to blues, baby. What can I say?
Hey, I understand.
Guilty as charged. Let's, before we get into the main event, let's tackle some housekeeping real quick. Here's another reminder. We have our November poll pick currently posted on our Patreon website. If you support us at the $5 level or above, you get this chance to vote on a movie we're talking about this November. The theme for November is Bride or Die, and the 3 movies to vote between are Bride of Frankenstein, Bride of Chucky, and Bride of Reanimator.
Oh, Bob, please tell me how those numbers have changed since last week.
Ooh, they have not changed.
All
Bride
right.
of Chucky. Bride of Chucky all day long.
What is wrong with you people? We're supposed to be celebrating.
We did this to ourselves.
You did this to us.
What? We agreed. We always agree. Make sure you get your votes in before the end of October. We'll see what we're talking about this November. In other Patreon news, we've been releasing a brand new mini cast every Friday for the month of October. If you support us at the $10 level or above, you get access to a whole backlog of mini casts. We've got over 50 on there now. The most recent episode we dropped, I was talking about Titan, the French pronunciation.
Titan. I love your French accents in that, Bob. I will say I was listening last night because I just watched that film and I was like, I need to know somebody's thoughts on this right now. Right? So I listened.
Yeah. I don't know if the way I interpreted that movie is what the filmmaker intended whatsoever. I've done no research.
It's very wrong, Bob.
It could be. It's a hell of a movie and there's a lot to ponder about it. So I definitely recommend checking the movie out before listening to that mini cast. What else we got going on? I think that's about it as far as Patreon is concerned. Juice, do you have any news you want to mention?
I do not, sir. My house is clean.
All right.
Is this house clean, Bob? Fully? No physical media or anything?
This house is squeaky clean, baby.
All right, here we go.
You guys are very tiny around here.
We keep a clean house, that's for sure.
Squeaky fucking clean. All right, let's get into the main event. We're talking about Simpsons Treehouse of Horrors 537. We already did 1 through 4. I was about to say. Let's kick it off with the back of the box.
What's on the back of the box?
Piece of cake. I don't know what Randy's always bitching about.
Yeah. Everybody gang up on Randy because he's not here tonight. Yeah, I do have this on the DVD, so I can read from the actual back of the box.
DVD. Oh, you barbarian.
How retro. So yeah, Treehouse of Horror number 5. In this annual trilogy of terror, Homer attempts to kill his family in The Shinning. Homer tries to fix a toaster and winds up altering the fabric of time itself in Time and Punishment. And Principal Skinner, that is you, you're living that. And Principal Skinner serves students for lunch in Nightmare Cafeteria. All right. I think we mentioned this last time. There's not a whole lot to like really spoil because these are like very short comedic segments. So there's not like a big twist at the end and you're going to be like, oh man, I can't believe that they spoiled it for me.
And they're usually based on stuff. So, I mean, how can you have something spoiled for you that you probably at least heard of the source material? And on some of these, if you haven't, fuck you.
Yeah, I couldn't have put it any better myself. So yeah, just consider yourself warned. We're talking about these episodes through and through. If for some reason you don't want them spoiled, make sure you slam your eyeballs into them before listening to the rest of the show. So let's get into episode number 5.
Wait, should I just do a blanket spoiler warning?
Yeah, go for it. Let
Why
it
not?
Spoiler warning.
All right, there we go. Just felt obligated since I'm running
just to make it official
this week. Yeah.
Yeah, you might as well. Let people know.
Yeah, so let's go ahead and get into this. Number 5, numero 50. This aired October 30th, 1994. Damn, that is a long motherfucking time ago.
And I love that it came out the night before Halloween. I think that's really cool because that doesn't happen a lot. But this one landed right before Halloween. That's really good timing.
That's
hell
nice.
Yeah. The Shinning. Do you guys have anything you want to mention right off the bat regarding The Shinning?
Oh man.
Well, I do want to say, like, before we even talk about just the segments, one thing that I think is cool about this is one of the David Merkin seasons, and he deliberately placed more graphic violence in this one due to complaints about it. So he, like, they were telling him that they were putting too much in these Halloween episodes. And so he really just kicked it up to be an asshole, which is a very David Merkin thing to do. And I think if you go into it knowing that, this one is pretty, I mean, there's a lot of blood and a lot of, violence and gore for a cartoon, especially in '94, in this episode. He said he wanted more blood and guts than usual. And it's also the first, or the last, I should say, the last one to feature the funny tombstones. Last time we talked a lot about the funny tombstones,
Right.
and the beginning of this one is like, it's basically acknowledging like, hey, we're not doing this anymore. This is the end of the humorous tombstones. And so I think there's a lot, this is sort of a new era for the show moving forward in this one. And I think this episode is it's a great indicator of that, especially that sort of David Merkin flavor. I like to always bring that up.
That's a great thing for you to bring up, because one thing that we talked about last year, and I'm going to reference the ones we talked about last year because I think they're really relevant, especially kind of, as you said, it does feel like kind of a new era going into these ones, but they give us a little bit of like an intro one more time. Kind of Marge comes out and does like a warning, and then it cuts out and does this, like Bart and Homer over like a wave of audio or whatever. But last year we got like full wraparound, like anthology pieces that were separate from the 3 that we got. And this one kind of kicked off, and I was like, oh, we don't have that. I mean, Marge came out, she comes out and does the warning stuff, but then it never cuts back to that really. There's something at the end, but I was kind of disappointed by that. And something we're going to talk about too in the next 2, 6 and 7 as well, is they don't include those, and that was kind of a bummer for me this year. And not something I realized, these are kind of exist as pieces in my memories. But watching them kind of chronologically, I'm like, oh shit, where are those things that I love so much? Those I love, previously we talked about them like being with the family on Halloween, like trick-or-treating or going through their candy and stuff like that. And that just along with the tombstones kind of missing from the next 2 episodes, it kind of kicked it down a notch, and I was kind of bummed by that.
Interesting. I mean, I think they started realizing, and we'll sort of get into this when we get to one of the other ones, but they sort of started realizing like, hey, we can have more time for these stories, more time for these segments if we cut out, these little extra pieces. And I'm sure for the team too, it's probably something else that they didn't have to worry about. They could really focus on the segments. But I agree with you. There is a lot of charm in those. But I also last year gave a bit of a spoiler and said that my favorite would be in the next batch we talk about. So we'll get into that. We should probably talk about the shinning.
All right, let's talk about the shinning.
The shinning. Yeah, so I guess they do need a little extra time. These stories that they're telling are a little beefy, especially like spoofing The Shining, which is a long ass book and a long ass movie. And they cram a shocking amount of plot into this like 10-minute segment. If that.
It's not 10 minutes. It's 7 to 8.
7. Yeah. But they get a lot of mileage out of this little short. I love the jokes are so rapid fire in this. This is probably one of my favorite segments of any of the Treehouse of Horrors that I've seen. I love The Shining. I love the jokes they cram in here. They're like, they have to keep turning back around to go to the house, make sure the door's locked or whatever. They leave Grandpa at the gas station, and like Homer just does not flinch whatsoever. He does not want to go get him.
What about Grandpa? Lisa,
keeps
nobody else gives a shit.
Well, and also, we talk about David Merkin. It's worth mentioning that he really wanted to do this one because he said that Stanley Kubrick had been a big influence on him in general. Like it made him want to direct, it made him want to get into making things. So being able to do something like The Shining for The Simpsons was like a big thing for David Merkin. So just another feather in his cap. Another reason David Merkin is really cool. So I like to point that out.
Nice.
Hell yeah. Groundskeeper Willie's character, he's Scatman Crothers, basically from the movie. And he's got the Scottish ladies like hanging above his bed and shit.
Classic.
Fucking
that shin of yours.
Mm-hmm.
So good.
I love how they even acknowledge that. Oh, you mean Shining?
The Shining?
That shit kills me.
The feeling fine on the typewriter. Fucking classic.
Yeah, they
I mean,
fucking Mo as of course the bartender is great. And then
Yeah.
even the whole like situation when they're like, kill your family, I'll give you a beer. And then later, he's just munching. He gets knocked out on the stairs and she drags his ass to the freezer and he's just munching. All the ghouls come in. It's like fucking Frankenstein, the Wolf Man and shit.
I
That's
mean, all of that is
classic.
a testament to, we're talking about how much is crammed into this
Mhm.
segment. I mean, every shot is crazy. I mean, the blood, Marge saying, oh, maybe what he's typed will be a window into his madness. And then you see this wild, just like pan around her, the walls, the lightning. It is a very impressive looking
Yeah.
segment,
Yeah.
especially for this time, which I would argue all of these are. This is when we really start getting into some really prime looking animation for the show is
Mhm.
I mean, especially with this one. But there is so much in all of these, but this first segment, I mean, they basically spoof the whole movie in, like we said, 7 minutes. Like it gets
Yeah.
all the keynotes of the main story from the book and from the movie. So
Yeah.
it's really cool.
It really
It's really,
does.
really
Yeah.
impressive. Yeah.
And even just his little spoof of like, here's Johnny or whatever. And dude, the grandpa one kills me every time.
I think my favorite joke of this whole segment is when Marge calls Chief Wiggum over the radio and she's like, help, my husband's on a murderous rampage, over. And he goes, oh, thank God it's over. I was worried for a second. Just turns the
I was
radio
getting worried
off.
for a second. Fucking idiot.
Classic.
I mean, the thing I write down every time I talk about this episode, and it's one of my favorite jokes, is just Homer being like, he realizes he can't watch TV. Oh, cable's out. Oh, not a drop in the house. I think I'll go check out that axe collection. Like, what an incredible, Lisa looks at Marge. Oh, is dad gonna go crazy and kill us? We'll just have to wait and see.
Just have
It's
to
just
wait and see. Who
the
can
reads
say?
in this episode, incredible. Yeah, just so good.
Yeah. it's a
Also,
great,
Bart cutting his way through the hedge maze. I love that shit too.
Yeah.
Found a shortcut through your hedge maze.
Yeah, and then Willie's just like, don't worry about it. His dad's gonna murder him anyways, and chop him, turn him into haggis. And he's like, "What's haggis?"
Well,
Oh,
it's
man.
also, I will say too, it's brave to even make this though, because obviously at that point in time, most people had seen The Shining, I would assume. But
Mhm.
like to make something like that, assuming a child would get it without asking their parents, is pretty risky. And I mean, that's more of
Mhm.
that, David Merkin type shit that I'm talking about. Like he would be the one to do that. It relies on you understanding something very, I wouldn't say obscure, but if I, at that age, if I put that on, I'm going to be like, I don't get this, but I guess it's still funny. And I think it's important to note that it is still so goddamn funny, which is why even if you didn't get it, you wouldn't really care. So
Yeah.
I don't know.
I saw this cartoon before I saw The Shining.
I was
for
going to say the
sure.
same thing. I said it
sure I
many
did too.
times last year. Is like this introduced a lot of us into horror. Like I didn't know what The Shining was when I was 6 years old, and I saw this too. And then when I finally did see The Shining, it kind of like put some stuff into context. Probably, honestly, I feel like I was probably more prepared to see it.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Yeah.
Yeah, it sort of exists in like the cultural zeitgeist, and like these themes are like already bouncing around in the back of your head, and like you're more familiar with The Shining than you ever really knew when you watch The Shining. You're like, I know all of this somehow.
Yeah.
Thank you, Simpsons.
After
Even
7 minutes
Mo.
of The Simpsons.
Yeah. Yeah.
Even Mo just putting it in such, plain terms, like, look, I'll give you a beer if you just waste your family, just kill your family.
Yeah.
I'll give you a beer. Like, so if you
Yeah.
see that and then go watch The Shining, you don't have to read between the lines. You're like, oh, he's saying, kill your family. It's just, it really does just, it's a cheat sheet to The Shining with a lot of really great jokes.
Mhm.
Yeah. What a great way to start this episode off. It's The Shining is like fucking classic to me.
And you get that violence you're talking about where old Willie, which it's going to come up again, gets the old axe at the back.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. There's also, so when they're in the snow and he finds the television and he says, teacher, mother, secret lover. So it's interesting to know as like a Simpsons collector that is a line that they've actually used on a lot of merchandise that has nothing to do with this segment or Halloween. There's a lot of t-shirts and like greeting cards and different stuff that they would have like Homer either laying on a television or sitting, watching a television, and it would say, teacher, mother, secret lover. So that line really outgrew this segment to a point that it had nothing to do with it anymore, which is like sort of weird. Every time I see it on something, I'm like, man, that is such a strange thing. But I guess it also is funny and doesn't really inherently have anything to do with Halloween. So who cares? But it is strange that they plucked that out and used it for so much stuff.
Yeah, that's interesting.
It's a random line.
Weird.
Yeah.
Very weird.
Anything else you guys want to touch on the shitting before we move on?
No, I'm good.
Yeah, this one's so cut and dry. It's just it's so goddamn funny. But nothing too crazy behind the scenes on that one.
Okay. All right. Well, let's carry on. The second segment of episode 5 is Time and Punishment.
Ooh, boy, I love this one, guys. I love this one.
Get into it. Why do you love it?
So, well, first of all, and this is something I've never read, but I wanted to look up, what some of these were parodies of, if it was some that I didn't actually know. And this is one I didn't know till I looked it up. It's a parody of a short story by Ray Bradbury called A Sound of Thunder. I don't know if either one of you have ever read that. It seems like a pretty obscure thing to make a segment out of. I know this was an idea that Matt Groening himself pitched, maybe not the parody, but the idea of Homer time traveling with a toaster was something that he pitched. But I just think that this one is like, it's such a bizarre premise. It gives you a lot of interesting character models. You see a lot of weird stuff. You get a lot of alternate reality views of The Simpsons, which is something throughout the entire run I always love seeing. Future episodes, weird Halloween spins where they have, they look different. So it just sort of starts a trend that I would argue in some form is sort of a part of the show moving forward. Just this very strange alternate universe sort of feeling in some of these Halloween episodes. And I mean, even the way it starts off, Homer getting his hand stuck in the toaster is fucking incredible. Those screams from Dan Castellaneta are just, I mean, you can hear, I say this a lot about him, but you can like hear the room. You can like hear the mic. You can hear the air in the room while he's yelling because he's just giving it. No one is giving it like Dan. It's just a perfect segment. Also just full of jokes.
Yeah, just starting off is even with the toaster, and then it's still stuck in there, and Lisa has to like point it out. It's
stuck in there again.
That shit kills me.
Grandpa's like little bit of advice that he gave to Homer on his wedding night was to not step on anything if he ever goes back in time. What a random thing to say.
This has to be, I'm telling you, it has to be one of the funniest segments of any Treehouse. And that joke is one that I wrote down. Just the line about dinosaurs in zoos followed immediately by advice on your wedding night that it somehow involves time travel. You can just tell that the writers had a lot of fun writing this sort of nonsensical bullshit for a Treehouse. Like they really get to do stuff they can never do otherwise, and it's perfect. It's a perfect example of that.
Yeah, so the first one he encounters his alternate reality is old Flanders. That shit kills me. The what the hell are you smiling at line like is one, like we talked about jokes that just stick in your mind forever. That is one. Like, what the hell are you smiling at? It's like where the hooks are forcing them to smile. Dude. Homer is going through this experience and he's still getting offended by something. That shit kills me.
Yeah, when they pull up to the spot and it says where the elite meet to have their spirits broken.
The Re-Education Center. Like, fucking hilarious. He's the unquestioned master and lord of the world, Ned Flanders. Like, what a title.
Let the hooks do their work.
And then you get some darkness with the lobotomies, like where everybody's just kind of like playing this and like, oh, come get a lobotomy with this. Like, ooh, that shit's like, you don't really know what's going on as a kid, but watching as an adult, I'm like, oh man, that's dark.
It's really dark. And I mean, Homer running from the dogs with the, these wieners will give me the energy I need. Like, it's just, this is, and I could say this about a lot of Halloween episodes or just The Simpsons in general. I did a Halloween episode earlier in the month that I recommend everyone check out, where I talk about some tree houses sort of like all throughout different eras. And, it's hard not to just want to there are so many good jokes in these
Mhm.
segments that I could honestly just recite them all for 2 hours and it would be
Yeah.
fun. It would be more fun than deep diving some of the information. It's just these jokes are so realized and just on point. Yeah, this one is not my favorite of the three, but this one is such a strong treehouse. Would rank really high for me in the grand scheme.
Yeah. I agree with that totally, man. The bit where Homer just sneezes in the dinosaur's face and they all just die. Like, love it. And the thing that like really breaks his balls, like the thing that he really cannot tolerate, is the fact that donuts don't exist
In the otherwise perfect universe.
but then it ends up raining donuts after he leaves.
It's like he couldn't even imagine creating the donuts himself.
Right. They have to exist.
That's something I never even thought about. Yeah, just go create the donuts, Homer. But also, I love that one of his selling points is, not only is the house really nice, his family is obviously well off and happy and they love him, but the fact that he ends with luxury sedan, like that's one of the selling points to him, is so good. And I want to mention too, there is a deleted scene from this, and this is something I also didn't know until digging into this a little bit. But there was supposed to be one of the alternate realities was going to be one where the family had a teenage son named Roy, and people that watch a lot of Simpsons, they actually ended up using that joke in one form or another. In the Itchy and Scratchy and Poochie show, there's a character named Roy. He's not their son. He's just sort of like a family friend or a lodger, if you will, named Roy. But that's where this idea started. They had to cut that scene. So they're like, that would be funny to make a character named Roy. So they ended up using that down the line. I think that's weird because I would love to see what that scene would have looked like prior in the treehouse.
I also kind of like there. I think it's when everything goes perfect. It's kind of like this subtle undertone that the worse he actually makes it in the past, the better his life turned out. Because I think that's when he sneezed and killed everything. And so then his reaction next time is to be like, well, fuck it. And just fucking goes ham on
rage.
Yeah.
Yeah, good
it's
shit.
So good, man.
He finally says, it's close enough when he returns and his family just has like lizard tongues. he can live with it.
Yeah, could you guys live with that? If you went into the future, you come back, all your friends have lizard tongues, but everything else is fine. Are you just gonna chill? You cool with that?
I
don't know.
Stopped at the donuts falling from the sky segment. Yeah. That would have been good for me.
It depends on it seems like a very subtle thing, like, oh, this is how people eat, but you don't know how that changes like the world. Like, are there devices that you now have to use your tongue to operate? Like, is it, I don't know. Yeah. You don't know what the world's gonna be like out there. You
got to get like a tongue surgery to elongate your shit so you can exist in the world,
Yeah, now you are now inept at oral sex compared to everybody else in the world.
Yeah, that is true. That is something I didn't even consider. I'm sure they have some really dope prosthetics, but
yeah.
But you would have donuts. Come on, you would have donuts though.
I can't accept that fate. I'm going back.
Anything else you guys want to touch on in this segment before we move on?
No, let me check. Yeah, I don't think so. Oh, right. King and Kodos. This is where we get their appearance.
Good point.
Because we mentioned King and Kodos just kind of showing up in all the treehouse. This is where they show up in this one, where their heads change when he's like flipping through all kind of alternate realities.
Quiet you. What I will say, this is a rare instance. I wouldn't say rare, and especially not in this episode. Talking about these episodes today, but this is one where the middle segment to me is the best one. Which is, as we talked about last time, not always the case, usually not the case. And this one, I believe, I love the shinning, but I think this is the funniest one. I think it is my favorite of the three.
Okay.
All right.
You're right though. Yeah, we did point that out last year that usually the second one is normally the weakest, or I don't know.
Yeah.
It seems like they try to
Yes,
sandwich it to
sandwich
carry
it,
it. Yeah.
Well, what's
Yeah.
funny is this year, anyone that didn't watch the most recent one, I want to encourage you. In the second one, they're like, look, every damn year, 2 good stories and a bad one in the middle. I'm getting sick of this.
That's awesome.
So they actually really make a really great joke about that.
Wow. Nailed it.
Yeah.
Cool. Let's carry on. We're talking about the third segment here in episode 5, Nightmare Cafeteria. I fucking love this one. This one
It's great.
kills me. This is one of the random like bits from The Simpsons that I'll reference in like daily life, like Uterbraten. I don't know why that just like sticks out in my head for some reason. I love how like extremely dark this one is too. Like the Skinner and the teachers are like salivating over eating these kids. It's like
Literally
really
eating children.
twisted.
Yeah.
It's
And
so
not even
twisted.
just like to get by, like by the end, Krabappel is just like so fucking pudgy just
Yeah.
from eating
Yeah.
all of these kids, and nobody
He's-
does anything. I love like the exchange with Marge, where she's like, "Hey, I can't fight all your battles for you. You're 8 and 10. You need to go tell them, don't eat me."
Don't eat.
Miss Krabappel, she literally tells them to go eat a stick of butter for homework.
Right.
They are addicted to eating these kids. This one, I didn't know this either. The plot, it's not really a parody of anything, but the plot bears reference to Soylent Green, which is a movie I've never seen. But
Okay.
that is sort of like the influence was from that. And this is also the first credit on the show for David X. Cohen, who would go on to write some classic episodes. And he would also create a little show called Futurama. Never heard of it, but
Never heard of it.
yeah, he'd go on to do some cool stuff apparently.
Nice.
Very cool. Isn't
Dude,
there a little Uter in all of us?
Dude, I was just about to mention that. Like, okay, so last time I mentioned that for me, the one who always kind of shined a lot was Burns in these Treehouse of Horrors. And we don't really, he's a little bit in the shinning. But what makes up for it in this is Skinner in this episode. And that segment where he's joking, like maybe we ate him and he's in our stomachs right now, like kills me every time. That's an amazing like Skinner moment. And even him explaining about Jimbo to the other teachers, he carries this one for me. And kind of makes up for that lack of Mr. Burns for sure.
Yeah, Skinner is great, and I mean that scene you're talking about, just the escalation of him just not knowing when to shut up is so fucking funny. You have him telling Bart, I think I'll start with what you always mention and eat your shorts. So much good self-reference in this. It's awesome. Yeah,
I love that he's just cracking himself up too. It's just him escalating himself. That shit kills me.
In his little outfit too, just looking fantastic.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I love that they gotta like match the theme with the kids and everything.
They're really getting into it.
Letterhosen.
I mean, that's pretty cool. He's got the free range children.
Yeah.
Dude, the sloppy Jimbo. They don't even try to hide that shit. I love it.
And Willie gets killed with an axe in every segment, which is something else. We sort of hinted at that, but I think that's such a funny gag that Willie is going to save the day in all 3, and he gets killed. He gets killed in every single one by a different person. So just so good. Also, recently saw an animation cell online of the scene where Maggie is standing on his back with an axe in his back. So any animation cell collectors, try to track that one down before it gets too expensive. Try to get it.
Oh, yeah, that was in the second one. Yeah, he shows up and he's like, Homer, I'm gonna help you or whatever. You gotta listen to me. And then Maggie axes him in the back. And then who gets him? Skinner gets him in the back in the third one.
Yeah, they brought back James Earl Jones for that one little line for Maggie.
That's
I forgot to mention
right.
Nice.
Perfect.
that. Truly,
Yeah.
this is a disturbing universe. They got him to just come say that one thing, which is great.
That's great. Yeah, because he hadn't been back since the first one, right? The first Treehouse of Horror.
Little call back to first Treehouse. Love
That's
that.
perfect.
Hell yeah. Anything else you guys want to touch on for Nightmare Cafeteria?
I did want to say that they ended the episode apparently with the little musical due to the fact that they had so much violence, and they were like, well, this will sort of be the way that we perk it up. We don't want to make it end with the kids dying, or so that would probably not get through the censors. So we'll make it a dream. We'll do this little weird musical with the fog that turns you inside out. And so they thought that would sort of get it, that would tie it up nicely, and I think it does.
I thought that had something to do too. They make a joke earlier. I can't remember what segment it's in. I think the second one, about the Tonys. And I thought that was kind of a callback to that joke. Like where they're doing a Tony type of performance. And speaking about, to kind of make up for the violence, this actually is one of the most disturbing things to me, I think, as a kid, that I remember them turning inside out. But then, because the blood splatters everywhere, I have a thing with blood, and the dog dragging this meat bar away, and the trail of blood, like, that disturbed me. That trail of blood disturbing. And the dog,
it's dark. Yeah.
It's very, very dark and super random too. Actually, I think the randomness of just waking up and being like, oh, there's the only thing to fear is this fog, and it's like, what the fuck is going on?
Well, they also reference it in The Shining, because if you listen, that's what they're listening to on the little television. That same little song and dance number from the end is playing on the television.
I see.
Which I didn't notice for years, but it's like just a nice. I don't know if that. I'm sure that was decided after the fact, but it ties it in real nice.
Huh. Nice. I didn't notice that. Yeah. Very cool. Well, let's go ahead and let's rate these as we go. Out of 5, how you guys feel about Treehouse of Horrors episode 5? Warren, why don't you kick us off, man?
So I love this one. And one of the things that I noticed last year when I was on is that I was like, like I joked, I believe I was there just to drive the score up and keep the score from being too low. I gave a lot of 5s that day. So I've learned from that, but I do love this one. And I think it is one of the better ones. But I landed at a 4. There's so much I love about it, but I'm trying to be a little more particular with my scores. And I don't think it's a perfect Treehouse, even though I probably use that word throughout my ramblings, but I'll give it a solid 4.
Right on. Juice, what about you?
Man, Warren, we're going to flip around this year.
Damn.
So this one, I went back and listened to our episode last year because I want to keep it kind of consistent. And I actually went ahead and watched all the first 4 again, just to refresh my memory with how they kind of compared with these, to try to keep it somewhat consistent with how I was ranking them last year. This one is so solid to me. And all 3 of these segments, I had mentioned last year that I wasn't as big on some of the science fiction-y stuff, or even really the kind of Twilight Zone stuff. But this one, all 3 segments hit hard for me. And I think this one has like some great jokes. And really the only thing that was kind of lacking for me, and just this initial disappointment, was like the wraparound and just the overall approach to these episodes. Just like the kind of quick beginning and stuff like that. I was like, oh man, because especially, like I said, I went back and watched the other ones too that we covered last year. And so that was a disappointment, but the segments themselves, and even they had a little bit of opening and a little bit of ending, so it kind of made up for it. But these are so solid to me. All 3 of these have like just in my brain stuck there moments from The Simpsons overall. And I'm going to give this one a 5. I don't think I don't think I like it just general. Like if I had to choose, I think 4 was still like higher for me just in general. But the segments like just go so hard on this one that I can't give it any lower than a 5, honestly. So yeah, I'm giving this one a 5.
I mean, when you factor in all the blood and stuff, I get it. I get where you're coming from. I like it.
Yeah. Bob, how are you feeling about Treehouse 5?
Well, I think this is my favorite that we're going to talk about tonight. The middle segment takes a little bit of a dip. But the shitting and Nightmare Cafeteria are like above almost anything we've talked about, I think, in the last 4, and including 5 and anything we're gonna talk about. Hang on, I got a delay and it's like throwing me off. Let me restart my program real quick. Hang on. Just see.
Is it going all right? Nah, maybe he can't hear me.
Sometimes technology sucks.
Dude. Yeah, you're not lying. We have this.
I know you
we
guys.
we have some kind of problem, like at least once a month for sure.
Damn.
This happens like pretty regularly. I think he just needs a computer update, but it's normally not too bad.
I've had episodes with such bad delay. I had to like, Jesus Christ, like editing them. I ended up having to like re-edit the whole, like, just because I would ask a question and he would wait. It would take like 10 seconds for him to answer me. I was like, fuck.
Dude, yeah.
Sometimes it happens.
Mm-hmm. Especially when you gotta cast like on Zoom and shit. But even still, even when we're just hanging out with like a cable go bad or just some crazy connect, even like you were saying before, like, oh, my headphones are connected or whatever. Yeah, shit gets wild.
It's wild.
Bob, can you hear us?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm just trying to get back to a good spot.
Yeah, just to hop in with your rating again.
Yeah.
Okay. Also, like, speaking of cables, this freaking cable like cutting it out. It's nothing. It's another.
It was me 2 weeks ago. I had a bad cable.
I mean, you guys' podcast always sounds really good to me. So whatever you do, you got to figure it out. You make it work.
Yeah, every now and then it fucks out, but it's taken a while to kind of get it.
How do you guys record that makes it sound so like I feel like you guys don't ever sound hindered by the connection really? Like what is your how do you all, I mean, you obviously don't record and send each other the files because you get the episode done so quickly.
We just record it from Zoom. Now Bob is taking the audio from Zoom, so his audio is always clean because he's going straight into his computer, and then he takes mine and Randy's from Zoom. But there are times like if somebody's got a bad connection, it'll glitch out. There'll be like sentences that just fall short. So it does happen. Yeah. But when you've got like a 2.5 hour podcast every week, like if it happens once or twice, most people, it just kind of gets lost.
Everyone's
in
used
there.
to it now. Everyone's used to it now. I listened to this show recently for the first time called.
I'm gonna be right back. I'm gonna grab another cable because this is just like not working at all anymore.
Do your thing.
2 seconds.
Do your thing. Yeah. There's a podcast I listened to for the first time recently that's been around for like 15 years.
Holy shit.
Honestly, their podcast sounds like shit.
Does it? Damn.
And they have sponsors and everything. I mean, like they're I mean, I've heard worse, but like they're clearly recording remotely now, and you'll just hear like a car drive by the window. Mm-hmm. Like, you'll just hear background noises and all this kind of stuff. And like, people don't care as much as we care, is what I'm finally learning.
It is weird to come to that realization because we did spend a lot of time thinking like, oh, this doesn't sound good. This does. And I agree because I try to go back and listen to our own podcast and it'll bother me like, oh,
sure.
Or even just as a listener, sometimes I'll be like, oh man, this just like sounds too grating or like I can't handle this. And so we've tried to get it as good as possible. But yeah, like it, once you get to the realization, it's like there's only so much you can do, especially when you're casting remotely. And there are bigger, you know, like you said, more sponsored podcasts out there that have audio that sounds the same as yours or worse. Now, of course, there's ones that sound much better. They're recorded in a studio, they're all together, you know, whatever. So I think it's always just about maintaining like a certain level of quality, I guess. But it's taken a while. Like even to it bugged the shit. We did a Halloween. We always do like a Halloween extravaganza, and we did ours 2 weeks ago where we covered three like Halloween franchise movies, and so super long. And for like half of it, my cable was just fucked up. Like it was like you were saying, kind of had like a popping glitch sound. Fucking nothing I could do. It's just like drove me insane. But I mean, that's just, you just have to roll with it sometimes. And overall, most people didn't like say like, oh, I couldn't listen to the episode or anything like that. So it just, like you said, most of the time it's just bothering you. But
yeah. Nah, I mean, it's probably a good problem to care that much. I mean, I would rather care than not care, but I'm just learning that people are not nearly as particular. I've literally had people tell me like, oh, like this episode's, or like your podcast sounds so good. And they were telling me that like early, even when I was like, when I didn't think they sounded good. So, I mean, it's, you never fucking know, but
yeah. So yeah, yeah, because like you said, every now and then you'll come across one, you'll be like, oh, where people, there's like 2 or 3 people on their levels aren't even like consistent in any kind of manner. Like one person's super loud and the other person, even like I was listening to, there's like a Jaguar podcast, like the official Jacksonville Jaguars, and like it was almost unlistenable because I had to turn it all the way up on my headphones. And like one guy was in the studio and talking regular, and the other person was like almost inaudible. Like the volume was so loud. I was like, this is like the official Jacksonville Jaguar podcast. So I was like,
that's what I'm saying, man.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. It's bananas, man. It's bananas that sometimes they just sound really bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's nuts.
Especially too, because that's coming from like a professional broadcasters, you know.
Yeah, you think they would care more, you know.
Exactly. Yeah. And I'm like, how is this like okay to them? Like I assume they've been doing this their whole fucking lives.
It's nuts.
Yeah,
whatever. I'm always trying to find new ways, but I also like my hat is off to you guys for how the fact that you don't have to really edit. I am way too like in my head not to edit a little bit. As far as like it also depends on the guest. I mean, I've done episodes of stuff where I didn't touch anything. I just like put the intro and it was done. But sometimes the guest is, maybe they're an animator that's shy and they're not well spoken, and I got to sort of like tighten up everything they said. And so it really is just, it just depends.
That is it. Most of the time it's just us. So we do have guests, fairly regularly, but like for the most part, it's just us. And we've just honed in to be like, don't talk over each other so much, or but I mean, Bob, that's all on Bob though. I mean, he does clean it up sometimes. I don't know how much time he spends on it, but usually he has the episode out the night we record it, so I assume not too long.
You guys are ballers.
It helps to split up the work. There's 3 of us, so it's like it's not all on Bob. It's not all, mostly Bob does a lot of it, but we at least like everybody else can, I upload the YouTube videos, make the art, and like, so we all split it up.
I think Bob's actually getting murdered right now.
Dude, this is driving me nuts.
Well, even like this, like I'm not going to edit this video. It's just going to go up. People are just going to watch us talk for a while on the behind the scenes. No editing here.
No. Yeah, why not?
That's why you guys are getting the scenes. That's how.
Yeah,
that's how
you guys are seeing the raw. This is no bullshit. You guys are seeing the real deal. You're seeing us talk about actual podcast shit.
Actually, we should charge more for this because this is valuable advice for starting your own.
Totally, and you get to see glimpses of Bob's pajama pants, which look very comfortable.
Everybody wants to see that.
Come on, I mean, don't get it twisted. I'm wearing pajamas as well. I'm wearing this cool Treehouse shirt, but
Hell yeah.
From a
I like
treehouse we
that.
are not talking about,
Yeah.
but next year.
I'm gonna close Zoom out and get back in. Like this is just not working, and I don't know why. So
Okay.
maybe it'll work if you hop
trying
back
everything.
in. Yeah.
Okay.
Bonus content out the wazoo, baby. This is where the people really start their fandom. They're like, I want to see this behind the scenes.
Mhm.
I want to see Bob mess with his phone for 15
Mhm.
minutes. So everyone watching this, y'all the real ones.
We do have
And you can go listen to
some.
my podcast while you wait if you want.
Yeah. Take a little break. Head over. We do have some people who say like, yeah, I like watch every episode or whatever on YouTube. I'm like, damn. Because they're like
Yeah,
they're
those
like
are the
2
real
hours
ones.
long. Yeah.
We're talking to you. You're the real ones.
Appreciate y'all.
Let's see if this works.
I know Pia, if you're listening, she was always saying like, hey, what's up with the behind the scenes? Like I had to stop them for a little while. And then I brought them back or whatever. She had kind of mentioned it. I was like, damn.
See, got to be held accountable once in a while,
I
guys.
know. Yeah.
I don't know, dudes. It's just like not.
What? So what's happening?
Well, I record y'all's Zoom audio off of my phone, and like I'm plugging the cable into the phone, and it is not like it's just still coming out of the speaker on the phone. It's not going through the cable into the computer. I don't know why. I've got like this adapter. I've got the one
so that wasn't the original problem though. It only happened when you rebooted your computer.
It's like yeah, this is a whole nother thing that has never happened before. I've got this adapter that I use every week. I thought maybe it went bad. I've got a brand new one, and it's still not working. So I don't know. This is a new issue that has never occurred before.
That sounds like maybe the connector on your phone.
Maybe.
Could be.
I would just give it a couple like in and outs to see if you can get it like locked. Have you had any
blow in the bottom?
Yeah, have you had any trouble charging your phone lately, Bob?
No. This is yeah, I mean there's like a little bit of lint in there and I got it out. I mean there might be more, but
the only other thing I would say, Bob, is there any other laptop in the house you could borrow to go through Zoom?
That is a good question. I don't think so.
Because that's what you're doing, right? You're going through Zoom and you just need an audio out.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, I've never heard of that issue. That's interesting.
Yeah, that's the only thing that came to my mind was like, it sounds like the phone's not making a good connection to the cable.
Yeah, I usually use compressed air or something to blow out the bottom. Sometimes it can get a little clogged up.
Yeah.
Or I just use my mouth. It sounds very sexual, but
you get your tongue right in there.
Yeah, you just gotta put your lizard tongue in there and get it out.
Go to work. Troubleshooting in real time, YouTube.
This is good stuff, man. I like this kind of content. And if you don't like it, you can fast forward it or you can go fuck yourself.
Yeah, that's the good thing about YouTube. Literally, like skip 20 minutes ahead and you should be good.
See, I came on Straight Chilling just to insult your fan base as much as I can in one episode. I'm like, if you don't know what these are, fuck you. And if you don't like the video, fuck them.
If you thought you liked listening to Straight Chilling, let me change your fucking mind, asshole.
Let me give you some information you don't. This is a great promotion for my podcast. Maybe I still sound like a jerk.
I don't know what to do. It's still not working.
Can you so doing Zoom through your laptop at the same time would fuck things up?
Yeah, I can't record it. It just doesn't work. Yeah, I mean, it's got to be a problem with my phone. Like, I'm just plugging my phone into the charger now, and it's just not even charging.
Yeah,
So,
then
what
Bob, restart your phone.
Yeah,
That's
try
true.
that.
Why doesn't it let you record on your computer?
It's just the way I have like the audio routed. I mean, because I don't record on Zoom, I record on another program that lets me play bombs and all this other
Got
shit.
it. Yeah.
Let me try and restart my phone. See if that does
Okay.
it.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah, I had actually to take my phone in to like have that little piece changed or whatever not too long
Oh, yeah.
ago. So I'm hoping that's not it, because for a while I would have to like connect my phone just to charge it to the charger and like put a book under it. So it had like some
Oh,
kind
yeah.
of pressure. And I was like, oh my God. So if that was something like that, he'd never be able to actually like record.
Well, what he would have to do, yeah, no, he wouldn't. I was gonna say you can get around that with charging because you can get one of those like little bases that just charges it like through the back that you don't have to plug in or whatever. But that wouldn't help him in terms of recording.
Yeah, that's why I was hoping
It's
like his girlfriend's computer might be available, because he could just like sign into Zoom. He just needs an audio port out. Actually, I'm gonna give him mad shit for this, actually, because 2 fucking years ago I said, Bob, we have fucking Patreon money. Let's go buy you a goddamn $200-300 laptop that you will just sit there that's dedicated to the podcast. And he was always like, ooh. And now this fucking shit, I might give him mad shit for it.
yeah, let's give him mad shit right now. Any luck, Bob?
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
Bob, remember 2 years ago when I told you to take some Patreon money and buy a $200 laptop that you could set up for this purpose? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Can you hear the shit I'm giving you?
You're
Mhm.
bitching. Doing a lot of bitching.
Remember that?
Bitching.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
Mm.
I didn't even know you guys
That's
did,
what
but I
this
remember
was
it.
for, Bob. I told you.
It's a bitching.
All right, let's hope that delay doesn't come back now.
Goodness.
All right.
Yeah, we got a delay.
No, it's fine.
All right, Bob, you ready to get
Hell
into it?
yeah.
Yeah. When I hit record, Juice, can you just ask me what my rating is again? Because when you asked me last time, the audio cut out and you couldn't really hear it.
Okay.
But I'll give you the point and we'll get into it seamlessly.
Okay.
All right, here we go.
All right, Bob, out of 5, how do you rate Treehouse of Horror 5? Treehouse of Terror. I'm sorry. Treehouse of Terror.
Everybody knows that's what it's called. I'm going to come in with a 4.5 on this one. I really love this episode. The Shinning and Nightmare Cafeteria are fucking bangers for me. I love both those segments so much. Time and Punishment is a little bit of a dip in the middle, but it's not even that big of a dip. It's just not quite as good as the other two, which are like all-timers for me. So yeah, I'm gonna land at a 4.5. It's probably gonna be my favorite segment of the night, but we'll get into that momentarily. That's gonna put our aggregate at a 4.5, which is pretty damn good.
Strong start.
Yeah.
All right, let's jump into episode 6.
Bob is 6 on that box, on that old school DVD you got. Can you hit us with the back of the box?
I'm glad that you asked, my boy, because yes, it is indeed on there.
Can you even play that anymore, Bob?
Yeah, I watched this for this episode. Yeah.
Does it look like a bunch of yellow squares on your high def TV these days?
It's like 1-inch pixels that are just slowly moving across the screen. Yeah, Treehouse of Horror 6. Here's the back of the box. In this Halloween-themed anthology, advertising icons go berserk and attack the 50-foot eyesores. Groundskeeper Willie invades the children's dreams and nightmare on Evergreen Terrace, and Homer enters a 3D world of computer animation in Homer Cubed. Gentlemen, let's get into it. Start your engines.
So good.
Yeah.
I want to say I want to say up top that because this is another one that there's a lot of cool information about, and this episode was so long, according to Bill Oakley, because all three of these segments are very complex stories, and it's hard to fit three complete stories into 21 minutes. End
Yeah.
quote. Because of the length, the episode featured a very short opening sequence and did not include, sorry, several trademarks established in previous Treehouse of Horror episodes, such as a Marge warning or wraparound. So
I see.
this is where they start realizing they needed that time for these stories because they were making them so complicated. So we're in full no wraparound land now.
Yeah, it really just opens with the old Krusty, like a headless Krusty. I appreciate that they at least gave it some kind of vibe.
I love that.
Yeah, that was a nice touch to kind of make up for that. But it really does, like, I will say, to me, especially, we're going to get into the meat of this episode, but to me, the time spent on these episodes for the lack of wraparound and lack of like warning and setup and tombstones and stuff. I also think you mentioned last time too that they said like it was just really difficult to do the tombstones, like come up with ideas for them every single year. But I don't think it necessarily benefits it. Like it's kind of one of those situations where I'm like looking at some of the old ones and I'm like, I mean, is it really helping here? Not in my opinion, but we'll get into that.
Right.
Yeah, I think I dig these stories pretty good. The last one I think is like technically really neat. I remember watching that in real time and thinking, wow, that's really cool. I think the story takes sort of a backseat to that one, but like Attack the 50-Foot Eyesores, I think they come out swinging. The jokes are like fucking rapid fire on this one, man. The pet boys when they come to life and they got their big ass heads and they're like carrying them around like wheelbarrows or whatever. That shit just fucking kills me. I was a big fan of Attack of the 50-Foot Eyesores personally. How'd that land for you guys?
It's great. I mean, it's not really a direct parody of anything either, which is cool. The name is a parody. It's like sort of a bite on the film Attack of the 50-Foot Woman, which I also have not seen. But the actual like what happens in the episode it's not really based on anything. But it is funny because it's written by John Swartzwelder, one of the best writers. For the longest time, had the most amount of scripts. I think he still does. Who worked as an advertiser. He worked at an advertising agency prior to being a comedy writer. So I'm sure he sort of just dipped into that and thought it would be funny to do a horror plot based off that. But I do think this one is very, very funny. It's a very weird story. It's like, the family seems like they know they're they seem like they know they're in an episode. Like some of their dialogue feels very like unreal. But it's great. I think it's a really fun one visually for sure.
There's a couple jokes in here that are memorable, specifically Bart on the devil's shoulder telling him to wreck the school and then going to the other side and saying like, yeah, do it or whatever. Like there's no like good conscience or whatever. I liked that. I liked that the devil's like considering it too, like, yeah, good point or whatever. That shit's pretty good. Overall, I guess when I watched this, I remember as a kid, but this time I guess I was kind of associating like in the realm of horror. Like these are like horror specific episodes, and we've seen a lot of classic stuff. And even we're going to talk about, Nightmare on Elm Street next. But I guess like with this one, I guess I was trying to associate it with like a kaiju type of situation, like a giant monster kind of flick. And in that realm, it's kind of nice that they brought something in like that because they haven't really in the past, and it's a cool nod, but it does lack some of the overall general spooky vibes, which is what I'm kind of like in these for. And so that's a little bit of a disappointment too, especially when you come out and it's headless Krusty and it's like, okay, that's a classic horror tale. And even now, when we talk about Godzilla films and stuff, it's like, yes, it's and giant monster films, they're in the horror realm, they're kind of like their own subgenre over here, but they don't have those like spooky vibes. The horror is something completely different. And so this episode, I feel like if it didn't have Evergreen Terrace in the middle, it would be seriously lacking at all in those kinds of vibes that are so prevalent in like episode 4, Treehouse 4, where it's just like all soaked in spookiness. Whereas this one like almost has none except for the second segment. So
Yeah, that's a good point. I wouldn't have even thought about that really, which is it's really true. I, I don't know. It's like I think I guess they kind of put all their eggs in one basket with the Nightmare on Elm Street parody. But I mean, it is, it's dark and it's stormy. So I mean, I guess there's a little bit of that. But I think if you showed it to someone who had never seen it, they wouldn't be like, "Oh yeah, this is a Halloween episode." It's
yeah,
just strange. And I think that becomes a theme moving forward in a lot of these where they do become less about, scary and Halloween and more about just strange and odd and something you would watch around Halloween more so than being horror or scary. You see them do more sci-fi and things ongoing. So that is an interesting point. It's something I haven't even thought about, but I like that.
yeah.
Something I like that they did in this a lot, speaking of the kaiju aspect of it, is I don't know if this is exactly a Godzilla roar or if they recreated it. It sounds very similar to a Godzilla roar, where all of these creatures are just like roaring. I thought it was like a really cool nod to Godzilla, obviously visually and audibly.
I think they'd have to, because it was either Corey or Chris who was on one of our Godzilla episodes talking about how much they charge for Godzilla shit and how it's all piecemeal. Like you can't just buy Godzilla, you have to buy it piece by piece. I can't imagine. I mean, I guess, they got the money at this point, but like I can't imagine they would spend that kind of money for this one short segment to have the Godzilla roar like more than once.
Yeah.
It's also not as funny as some of the other ones. I mean, I do think it's very funny. I mean, I love the whole bit with the advertising agency. You got the poster in the background that says 50 million smokers, 50 million cigarette smokers can't be wrong, and they're all smiling, holding up a cigarette. I think that's really funny. I like the way the guy talks. I like the whole well, sir. All of that. And you have a guest star, which is not that common for Treehouse. You have Paul Anka. And a bit of background on that, which is super cool, is that they had made a reference to Paul Anka in the Grandpa versus Sexual Inadequacy episode. And he wrote into them and was like, "Hey, I really appreciate you guys, using me for a joke. I really love the episode." And they were so, I don't know, touched is the right word, but they were so stoked that he liked it that they were like, "Well, would you ever want to do a voice on the show?" And he was like, "Yeah, I would love to." And so he becomes a part of this segment, and I think that's a really cool little tie-in. And he's very funny in it. He does a great job with the song.
That's awesome.
Nice. I think my favorite gag in this one is where Marge convinces Homer to return the giant donut because she thinks that it'll like calm the statues down and put it into all the chaos. And as soon as the lard boy or whatever picks the donut up, he just starts smashing houses with it. He's like, "Don't you get tired of being wrong all the time?"
Sometimes
I
Kills me.
I think my favorite, or the one that always sticks out to me, it's like one of those kind of moments that you almost quote in life, is when she's like, "Homer, where did you get that?" or whatever. And he's like, "Get what?" And she's like, "The giant donut." And he goes, "I acquired it legally. You can be sure of that."
You can be sure of that.
super good.
That's a good
Yeah,
one.
they also, I will say, it's worth mentioning. I don't know if either one of you have ever played the Simpsons game on
Which one?
PlayStation 2. The one that's literally just called the Simpsons game. It was like one of the last ones, like 2007, I think it came out. They used this whole segment as a level. There's a level where you literally are fighting this giant lard lad and like little crusty dolls and all these different some of the characters from this. And it's the same kind of setting, there's like, it's stormy, it's gross, and you're running around trying to stop this giant lard lad, who is actually way more powerful than this one. He's like shooting lasers and other shit at you.
Nice.
They brought this into the game, it's a very fun level. One of the hardest also.
Badass. Anything else you guys want to touch on this segment before we move on?
Well,
Good.
Good. Let's keep rolling. Segment 2 is Nightmare on Evergreen Terrace. Obviously a play on Elm Street here. Bart has this really terrifying nightmare of groundskeeper Willie, and Willie's just like terrorizing all the kids in the school, and we see him like catch fire and like how he becomes this like evil version, this like Freddy Krueger-esque character. I don't know, how did this parody sit with you guys? You think they honored the Elm Street story well enough?
I think this one is the funniest.
Yeah.
And I do think they do a pretty good job. Not nearly on the level that they did with The Shining, though.
Yeah.
I think it's not as there's not as much love in the parody as there is with The Shining. But I do think of the three, this is the funniest. I do like it a lot.
Yeah, this one I think it's the best too, and this one has a ton of classic Simpson moments in it for me. Again, it's another example of a horror that I couldn't see as a kid, and The Simpsons introduced me to with Freddy Krueger. But the moment there's a cut, like the whole flashback scene of showing the origin of Willie is fucking hilarious, beat for beat, dude. The don't touch Willie, the lousy Smarch weather, the whole dude, the whole like yay or nay on just like doorknob repair, $12, nay, and then fire extinguisher. This is a free service prepared by the fire. Nay.
Yeah,
it's dude, I mean, this is probably like maybe a 2-minute segment within this flashback, and every beat of it is hilarious, even the point of like, I'm gonna get your kids, or he's like, oh, what with your skeleton powers? Like, it's just so hilarious, jam-packed in this tiny moment. And like I said before, it's got the great spooky vibes, especially the ending kind of showdown. The sky in the background has got this, green black color, and it's got great spooky vibes. Him walking around like the desolate playground and stuff. I really enjoy this one.
Yeah, I think it was David X. Cohen. We mentioned him earlier. I think he said that in his opinion, this was like one of the scariest Treehouse segments, which I don't know if that's how it strikes me, but I guess that could be argued because, people die in it. Willie, the whole scene with him as a skeleton, as funny as it is pretty like, it is pretty weird. He's literally dying in front of us. But I agree with you. I think that every beat of that segment. Now, this is a free service provided by the fire department. And like just the timing on that is incredible. Even right at the beginning, you have this like Tex Avery style parody, which is really like jarring and sort of weird to see that sort of animation on The Simpsons. And then Bart wakes up, and as you hear Homer, Bart, is that you? Yes. Take out the garbage. Like, he just doesn't give a shit that his son woke up, screaming. So so many good jokes in this one, but I guess it is a little on the scary side for a Treehouse.
There's one moment that kind of stuck out to me where I was like, oh shit, that's pretty fucked up, is when Martin one dies in the class where he's getting choked by Willie, which has another great, I love his little pun of, you've mastered a dead tongue, but can you handle a live one? That one kind of struck me pretty funny. And then
so good.
But he like is strangled in his sleep, and he's like dying in front of the class, and then they fucking wheel him out, and it's like a funny joke, but it's also very kind of fucked up. Yeah, and that really kind of stood out to me as being like, oh wow, that's pretty dark, where his corpse is just all distorted and the kids are singing, screaming in fear. I was like, yeah, that's pretty messed up.
I like how they play into the Elm Street bit here, where they have groundskeeper Willie turn into a tractor as he's like chasing after the kids. And then towards the end, he turns into this like bagpipe spider thing that's like pretty badass looking. I thought that was like a really ingenious way to like take groundskeeper Willie and like make him into like an Elm Street type figure with the bagpipe situation. That always really stuck out to me. It's smart, man. Just good writing. Yeah, what you got?
Well, no, I was gonna say it's really interesting I don't know if anyone listening uses Frinkiac ever, but if you ever need any Simpsons screen grab, at least from the first 17 seasons, there's a website called Frinkiac where you can just type in a quote and it will literally find the screen grab that goes to that quote. Or if you type in a pretty
Wow.
open, say you type in "eat my shorts," it'll find pretty much every instance he's ever said that with the appropriate screen grab. So anyone should go there and look for this scene and click through the images. There are some really interesting things that he turns into quickly before turning into that weird bagpipe spider. There's like a tank. There's like a lot of really cool shit that you only see for a split second. So Frinkiac, or just a good DVD like Bob has that you can just pause it, that you can see some cool stuff in that scene for sure.
You might have to blur your eyes a little bit, kind of squint, and
It's high def, Justin. This
uh-huh.
DVD works great. Awesome. Yeah. Anything else you guys want to touch on? Nightmare on Evergreen Terrace.
I think it's worth mentioning that the set
Mhm.
design of all the dreams is really great. Like when you see Martin's dream, that all looks really cool. That's like probably an underrated part of this for me. But other than that, nah.
There was one
Right on.
more I liked where Bart dreams about Krusty, and then Krusty is like, "Don't dream about me anymore." Like in the active dream. That shit got me good.
It's good.
That is good. All right, let's carry on here. The third segment is Homer Cubed. So yeah, this is an interesting one in that I don't know if they've ever done this since, Warren. I'm sure you do, but they like turn Homer into like a 3D animation and then have him show up in the real world at the end of it, which is pretty amazing. I know you have some trivia on that.
Yeah, there is more interesting background info on this segment than possibly any Treehouse ever. Obviously, it's a parody of the Twilight Zone. Sorry, Juice. Episode "Little Girl Lost," in which a girl travels through a portal to a fourth dimension. But there's them doing something like this, especially we're talking mid '90s. Toy Story wasn't out yet. Things like that. So seeing this sort of thing on TV or in anything really is like really crazy. And I'm sure like at the time, this was like the very, top tier of technology. So this is just some things I wrote down. So, obviously it's a real shock to fans because of the 3D animation. And they actually had to use some Bart dolls, like some of the toys, to even know how to make a 3D render of him because they couldn't figure out how to do his head with his spikes. So they had let's just use one of these dolls to do that, which is really cool. And I do want to say there's a great article on Entertainment Weekly from 2018 about this segment specifically, not even the whole episode, just this segment. That is a great read. If you Google that, you'll find it really easily. But there's a cool quote from David X. Cohen where he says, "I wouldn't rank this as the funniest thing that I've written because that wasn't entirely my goal. But it was the most ambitious thing I've ever worked on, requiring the most people to suffer the most to get it on the air. I believe at the time that we ourselves were so dazzled by the graphics that we just wanted to linger on them with a little bit of suspenseful music and just kind of show off. We slowed down a little bit to just say, hey, world, we're doing this thing that no one else can do right now." Which is I think that's kind of obvious when you're looking at it, and then it's worth mentioning that Pacific Data Images is who created the 3D animation, and they were the same team that made the Pillsbury Doughboy for the commercials.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Huh? Yeah.
Yeah. So they hadn't done a whole lot of big stuff outside of that. So to work with the Simpsons, they actually took a big pay cut. Like they took a very low amount of money, even for the time, just to work with the Simpsons on this. And the network gave them a lot of shit about the budget. They gave them a lot of shit about wanting to do the live ending. They wanted a crane shot, and Fox was like, no, but they finally got him to let him do this crane shot. And David Merkin was so frustrated. He's like, to this day, that crane shot bothers me because I think it could have been better, but they were so on us about, doing it a certain way and getting it done and saving money. So they took a lot of shit to make this segment. And I think it's just a cool little piece of history to dig into that. So everyone should go look at that article. It's great.
That is cool. Yeah. This one is memorable to me, but not as a Treehouse of Horror. Until I came back to it this year, if you had asked me, I'd be like, oh yeah, I remember that episode, but I don't think it would have stuck out to me as a Treehouse one. The ending is super memorable. Of course, Homer walking around in the real world and being disturbed by it, and everyone seeing him as he is and being like, what the fuck? Like, that always stuck in my mind as a kid. And even just the 3D thing, you know, him disintegrating into a black hole, and him walking around this world was all super memorable. But again, even from there have been some Twilight Zone episodes that still have a disturbing vibe, you know, like the Gremlin one on the bus, stuff like that, where it still has a horror element. This really doesn't. If anything, it's kind of beautiful, you know, especially for its time. He's walking around this world. There's fish, you know, the water and the fish and the buildings. There's nothing scary about it other than he's somewhere where he's not supposed to be, but nobody even acts that worried about it, you know. Not real. They try to help him, but nobody's real concerned. So this almost has like no spooky vibes, no kind of like stakes to it or anything like that. And while I think it's cool and memorable, it's not great for a Halloween episode to me.
No, that's a good point.
I think it's interesting knowing that they had like some budget struggles with Fox when they were making this, because there's like a bit of a meta aspect towards the end here where Homer says, you know, I feel like I'm wasting a fortune just standing here, and like they're just like really commenting on how that is factual. That just adds a lot more weight to that line for me. And I think like back in the day, like I said, I remember watching this when it aired and thinking, holy shit, that's really cool. It's just like a neat trick. But like now, like if I was a kid watching this today, like you grew up watching Pixar and stuff, so this is not going to be that impressive anymore. And it is definitely, it feels a little bit underwritten as far as like the jokes. They're not quite as rapid fire. There's still some very funny jokes in here, don't get me wrong, but it's not quite as rapid fire as some of the other ones. So it feels like watching this with fresh eyes or modern eyes, this episode ends like kind of on a down note, especially coming off A Nightmare on Evergreen Terrace, where that's just like banging on all cylinders. It doesn't end very strong, but it's got a healthy dose of nostalgia for me personally, having seen it as a kid and knowing more of the history on it now. It's pretty cool. You got something?
Everyone's gonna remember, you know, like watching it for the first time. I'm sure, you know, like you're saying, anyone that saw it as a kid, like there's no way they weren't talking about it for weeks at school. You know, especially in a world, like I said, before Toy Story, before like, you know, before this kind of thing was common. Like, you know, I say the Pillsbury Doughboy, but that's one little guy on a screen, you know, like this is a crazy thing for the time. But, you know, and there's also, it's worth mentioning, I wasn't even going to pretend I was going to try to read all these, but there is a whole list of background jokes that the company put in when they were making that segment. There's little things in the background, like I think a tea kettle, which was like one of the first things ever 3D rendered, is back there. All this cool stuff, math equations that mean funny jokes. So I think it's one of those situations where at the time it was so unique and special that it got away. It was okay that it wasn't like crazy funny or crazy scary or even really, you know, served a purpose outside of, you know, it's like David Cohen said, they were amazed by it. So I think it sort of gets away with a lot because of that, but I still have fond memories of it, but I think my score will show how I feel compared to the other ones.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
I will, just to give us a few props real quick. It's not packed full of jokes, especially coming off Evergreen Terrace or whatever, but or Nightmare on Evergreen Terrace. But there were a couple ones that got me pretty good. When he draws a square and Chief Wiggum's like, "Whoa, slow down, Egghead."
Yeah.
That shit killing. Also, Grandpa coming in like, "I need 4 stout men to work the bellows." Like, what? He's just ready to go with this diver suit. And then also the professor, God, what's his name? Farnsworth?
Frink.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. He's like, this should be, you know, completely obvious to anyone with you know, whatever rocket science degree. That shit was funny, or a degree in. metaphysical whatever. That shit killed me, that joke. So
great.
there were some good ones in here, but yeah, it's not like back to back, because you do spend a lot of time where Homer's just like discovering this world, and again, it's about that kind of spectacle for that.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Selma saying it's like he just disappeared into fat air.
Oh,
Oh yeah, we didn't
so
even talk about
funny.
that opening of them all trying to hide from them, and his solution
Yeah.
is to hide behind the bookcase.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of the exchange where the kids are in the closet and he says, "Well, we're calling it now," and Homer goes, "You are?" Like he just like gives up on the like that's all really funny. I mean, you know, to say I think we're all saying the same thing in the sense that this one has one scary segment sandwiched between two stranger ones that are a little more they're more interesting than they are scary or even like wall-to-wall jokes. And so as good as this treehouse is, when you compare it directly to the one before it, and spoiler, the one after it, it is weaker. So that's just how it goes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anything else you guys want to touch on before we rate this thing?
Let's rate it.
All right, let's do it. Out of 5, Juice, why don't you kick us off this time? How you feel about Treehouse of Horrors episode 6?
This one is gonna rank lower for me, and I'm trying to decide exactly how low it's gonna go, because I don't know, it's difficult for me personally. Some of this is going to come in. I want the spookiness, so for me, kind of peak Treehouse for me, even when I was saying like, 5 was a 5-star, even comparing that though, I still prefer 4 going back, where it's about vampires, zombies, and stuff like that. That's what I want from my treehouse. I want to see the Simpsons at Halloween. I want to see them like carving jack-o'-lanterns or stuff like that. So a couple things is again, no wraparound, no real kind of intro. I do appreciate the little bit of Krusty that we get, and this ending is memorable. But to me, it just doesn't compare to the vibes of the old school ones. It just doesn't. It's also a little unfortunate to me. It's like it really kind of carries this. Evergreen Terror, Nightmare on Evergreen Terrace is great, and almost is like one of those kind of like classic, Treehouse tales, but it feels almost wasted in a way, because it's paired with these two things to me that just do not scream horror or Halloween or Treehouse vibes, and that's kind of unfortunate for me. I'm almost like, man, if this was paired with something else, I almost like want to mix and match, like, oh, if this one went over here, it'd be a 5-star episode or whatever. But you can't do that. So this one's tough. I'm trying to think. Treehouse of Horror 3 was the last one I rated like super low, and I was trying to remember the segments that came out of that one. I know like King Kong was in that one. What else was on that one?
3 is a clown without pity.
The doll, yeah.
Yeah, King Homer and
Dowsey for Zombie. See, even that had Return the Living Dead parody. Yeah. Man, I don't know. I want to drop this one down significantly. I think I'm gonna take it to like a 3. And and a lot of that really goes to Nightmare on Nightmare on Evergreen Terrace for me. And like, not to say that these segments are bad, but in my mind, I just don't even necessarily, before watching this, I don't think I would associate them as Treehouse of Horror segments. Definitely the Evergreen Terrace one was, and like I said, that one's got like so many classic jokes for me that I'd be like, yep, that's a Halloween episode, but these other ones not really. And when I came upon it, actually, especially the first one, I was like, oh, I was kind of let down. And like I really felt that, especially coming off of some of like the ones from last year. So yeah, I think I'm gonna give it, what did I say, 3.5?
You said
I think
3.
you said a 3.
Oh, 3. I'll bump it up 3.5. Bob, I hope the ink hasn't dried yet.
I already wrote it down, but I'll change it for you.
Oh, you got to add the 0.5. I'll give it a 3.5.
All right. Warren, how do you feel about this one?
So I want to say that this is one that is ran by, 2 of my favorite writers to ever work on the show, 2 of the best showrunners ever, Bill Oakley and Josh Weinstein. But I do agree that I think that when this came out, I would have given it a 5. Like for the time, if I was rating this back in 95, I would have just, and I did. I loved this episode as a kid. I didn't shut up about it for a while. But I think age does bring it down a little bit. The third segment relies on being so incredible in the moment that now it just sort of loses steam because you've seen it a bunch and it's also nothing. It's not breaking any new ground mentally, even though what it did at the time, if that makes sense. It makes sense. So I think 1 is a great segment. I think, it has some things that could make it spookier, which would be a plus. I think Nightmare on Evergreen Terrace is great. I think Homer Cubed is great, but I think in the grand scheme of Halloween Simpsons episodes, this one does rank lower for me than I would have thought it did before, doing this and sort of really breaking it apart and making notes. So I'm going to give this a 3. I'm actually going to go lower than Juice, which I can't believe. And Bill, if you hear this, I am so sorry. I love you. And I also love this episode, but I'm only comparing it to the other ones. So I'm going to go with a 3.
Actually, I want to go back to, but I want to go back to a 3. Just mark that 0.5.
Kidding me. Dude, I already did the aggregate. It's too late, buddy.
Bob, I'll do the math for it. Look, I got the math on this one. Don't you worry, Bob. I got this. I got it.
It's done. I'm surprised at what I'm going to come in with here. I'm going to be higher than both of you guys on this one.
Wow.
I really love Attack of the 50-Foot Eyesores. I think that's a great segment. It's not particular to Halloween. It's not like a horror parody or spoof or whatever. So it definitely kind of has a knock against it for that. But I love the jokes in this one. And I think just seeing like all these giant advertisements come to life and just smash the shit out of Springfield and like the Godzilla roar. I really dig the vibe of what's happening. And, just like these different creatures that are roaming around the city. I love the choices that they make. Nightmare on Evergreen Terrace is like an all-timer. It's fucking, I got no complaints with that one at all. The only time this one really takes a dip is the last segment, Homer Cubed. And it's still funny and it's still like nostalgic to me. And it's neat to know that the Simpsons were able to do something like this, which was very ahead of its time. But overall, they're just kind of flexing rather than like making a very funny a segment. So, but it's still cool and it holds a lot of value still in and of itself. So I'm going to give this a 4 out of 5.
Wow.
Yeah. There you go.
Bob, I got that math for you. Overall average. Go ahead and get that wide out. Overall, it's going to 3.3 repeating. So write that down, Bob.
All right.
I know you write in ink. Can't be erased. We need to get you one of those erasable pens.
It's just scribbles all over. I try to keep it neat, and I can't do it. I just can't do it.
I mean, I would argue that even giving it a 3 doesn't mean that I don't love it, but sure. I think 5 is so good. I mean, I personally like 5, and again, spoiler, I like 7 more also. By a lot.
Get into that. All right.
Yeah. So let's jump into 7. Here goes the back of the box. The Simpsons Showcase features a terrifying look at Bart's evil twin in The Thing and I. Lisa creates a miniature world in the Genesis tub, and aliens steal the identities of Bill Clinton and Bob Dole, and Mr. King goes to Washington. All right. That's interesting. So like I was doing some research for these on IMDb, and that last segment on the back of the box here says Mr. King goes to Washington, but it said Citizen King on IMDb. So that's interesting. I don't know. If
I've always
that
heard
is
it
the
as
correct
Citizen
name.
King. Yeah.
Yeah, that is a correct name. That's interesting. They got that wrong. Yeah.
So this is misprinted on the box.
Bob.
Wow.
What a funky item you have.
It probably means it's worth $1 billion. Yeah.
Yeah, it's worth a lot of money now. There you go.
Very interesting. So this aired October 27th, 1996. Let's go ahead and jump into this. We're starting with The Thing and I. Warren, why don't you kick us off? I know so spoilers, I did listen to your Halloween episode and I know that you love this episode. Yes. So why don't you kick us off, man?
I was gonna say, so anyone that wants to check it out, go listen to the Halloween special that I did at the beginning of this month. I had Botter from Shortbox on with me. We talked about the what I consider the best treehouse, an underrated treehouse, and then also a good modern treehouse. So we go over a lot of Halloween stuff, a lot of treehouse stuff. And this one was my favorite. I ranked this one as my favorite treehouse. Now, granted, that has changed several times in my life, but in this current state, when I watch through Treehouse, this is the one that always sticks with me, and I just think it's one of the all-time best and currently my favorite. I just think there's a lot to love about it. It's a very now you talk about spooky vibes. I would argue this one has a lot of spooky vibes. I think this one is very strange, a little unnerving, and just creepy, especially the Thing and I. So I think I think this one has a lot of stuff going for it, even though once again we do not have the wraparounds.
Yeah, the Thing and I like is extremely creepy. It's probably the creepiest one of the three. Bart having this like Siamese twin living in the attic, and his parents have been like feeding him fish heads, and he's like living in squalor. It's like really, really twisted. And then of course the surprise ending here is we find out that Bart was actually the evil twin the whole time, and the good one's been locked up in the attic, which makes sense knowing Bart's character throughout the series. Juice, how you feel about this?
Yeah, this one did. I mean, this one is very disturbing. And this one, I remember having some kind of effect on me because when the evil twin is like looking at them through the grates, or like I think Bart ends up looking through the grate at the end. But I mean, that kind of affected me. I remember, being in bed at night and having air vents in my room and thinking like, shit, can something like see me from up there? Yeah, I think it came from this episode. And also just the way the evil twin Bart looks, and this is a lovable character that you spend a lot of time with, play video games, have dolls and stuff, and it's just he looks so disturbing. And also from a psychological standpoint, I remember the idea that the parents would just, because he was like deformed or whatever, would lock him away and feed him fish heads. Like I remember that having an effect on me. Like that was disturbing to me. That like, does that happen, or like could that happen, or like just this idea of this terrible kind of abuse, which as an adult is you're like, oh my god, like that's really terrible in real context. But I do remember that affecting me as a kid. So I would agree, this one is very horror driven, very disturbing, and very like effective from a psychological like horror standpoint. Absolutely.
And also, I said this in my episode, but it bears repeating that Nancy does an incredible job of doing another voice that kind of sounds like Bart, but not really. And their interactions are very like strange. Like, when she says, oh, you're here, aren't you? Yes, Bart, I never left you. Like, it's a dark premise. And I, for a long time, didn't think that it was based on anything. I used to always say like, oh, I like this one because it's not a parody. But Bill Oakley, the showrunner of this season and episode, corrected me and said, no, it is. It's not a parody, but it's inspired by Basket Case, which I have never seen. But that makes, after him explaining Basket Case to me, I can see that. But for years, I didn't think this was based on anything. So that's a little weird piece of trivia there.
Yeah, Basket Case is, man, if you don't have a strong stomach, I don't really think you're gonna enjoy that movie. It's a Frank Henenlotter joint from like the early 80s, and it was shot on a very, very low budget in New York City, which New York City in the 80s was not a very fun place to be. And it's about this guy who has a Siamese twin who's like a really, really deformed, sort of like half developed individual. Like it doesn't have legs. It's just kind of a blob with a face and some hands. Like, and he carries around in a basket, and they go hunt down the doctors that separated them at birth to exact their revenge. And it's a gory mess, man.
Wow.
It's kind of amazing, but only if you're into that sort of thing.
Well, I kind of want to watch it now. I kind of want to watch it.
Yeah, I'm curious because I was under the impression too. I wasn't familiar with any source material for this one. And so now, this kind of being a classic Treehouse in my mind, I am morbidly curious now. I'm like, oh, huh.
Where is the straight chilling episode about Basket Case?
Yeah, we have not covered that.
We haven't covered it yet, but dude, I would be happy to talk about that movie. That would be great. Somebody pick it. It's got to be a you pick. We'll talk about that.
Yeah, that's pretty much the only way now.
Yeah. Badass. Yeah, there's some solid ass jokes in this one as well. Like there's the Homer I Hardly Knew Me, where they find his autobiography in the attic.
That show's
fucking
cool.
Hilarious. The routine soul smear confirmed the presence of pure evil. Like that's a soul smear. I don't know. It's good. The pigeon rat gag,
dude.
was hilarious
The pigeon
too.
rat, yeah.
It's also like really fucking twisted though. Like that plays into the horror. Like sewing a rat to a pigeon and just seeing them try to live is dark. It's very dark.
I mean, I said this in my episode, but again, like I'll just repeat myself. I think that when you break it down and think about this, kind of like what Juice was saying, you have this sibling that lives in the attic that is yearning to be reattached to his twin, to the point that he has dealt with this life and practiced on pigeons and rats just, in preparation to reconnect with his long lost brother. It's very, very twisted, very dark. And anyone that, I think that is why this one ranks so high for me, because it is one of, and I would say for all three of these, especially the next one, I think they are very psychological. You could really go down a rabbit hole of thinking about if this actually happened and how fucked up it would be. And I don't think that happens in a lot of the Treehouse in the way that it happens in this one. I think this one could easily, really stick with someone. And I think that makes it special.
Yeah, I agree. Anything else you guys want to add before we move on?
I guess like the twist at the end too. I mean, kind of mentioned of just like Bart having to switch places. Like they're not even gonna rectify. It's like, nope, now you
get
go
up in the
attic after you. And I think that disturbed me a lot too. It's like he used to live this regular life and now he is banished to the attic or whatever. That's fucked up.
Yeah, just let them both live together. I mean, I do love Hugo eating his napkin. I love Dr. Hibbert. I love Dr. Hibbert punching him through the picture frame. Like, I mean, that's all really great. Dr. Hibbert's monologue telling the story of how they got separated. That's all really great. The score is awesome. This one just fucking rules. That's all I can say.
I like that he just like appears in the house too. There's like the thunder and like Dr. Hibbert's just in the house. It's pretty good.
So good.
Good shit. All right, moving on. The second segment is the Genesis tub. So this feels like it's a parody of something, and I can't remember if you mentioned it or not, Warren. Is it?
It is. This is another Twilight Zone, Juice. I'm so sorry. I know you hate. I know you hate those.
And right in the second position again. They always just stick them right there in the middle. Where bad ones go.
Listen. So this is a story from Twilight Zone called "The Little People," which I really need to watch. I looked up sort of the breakdown of what happens in it, and it does sound really fucking weird and cool. But this is, this might be an unpopular opinion. This is one of my favorite Treehouse segments, period. Not even in just this episode, but just in general. Anyone that listens to my show knows that I'm a big Lisa fan. She's my favorite character, which is also odd to some people. And I think she really shines here. I think she has so much good delivery, so many great jokes. And again, this episode or this segment has one of my favorite jokes in the entire series, which is the square pancakes. The waffle iron's in the shop. Oh, the waffle iron's been in the shop forever. That is one of my favorite jokes in history, not even just in the Simpsons. And so this one is really high for me. So good.
Yeah, this one, I think it does take a step back for me. I like the sort of the headiness of it. Like Lisa accidentally creating life and essentially becoming a god, and the civilization advances so rapidly they far surpass our civilization, and they create this like ray gun and shrink her down so they can live with their god. And it's like, it's so heady, this concept. You're like, holy shit, like the Simpsons are doing this in like 6 to 8 minutes or whatever, and like to consider how much they're packing in again is incredible. It's not like super horror specific. It doesn't give me Halloween vibes really in any way. but I love the ideas that they're presenting to you here, and like how they immediately start questioning like their own existence, and like if she's a god, why does she let X, Y, and Z happen to her people? And like, you know, they just like launch right into some massive questions that people ask every day, and there really isn't a great answer for it. I love all of that, man. It's good stuff.
So good.
Yeah, I was looking, I don't have too many notes on it. And this one just doesn't leave much an impression. Like once it started, I remember like, oh yeah, I remember what this is about. But I mean, it even ends on a note of like, oh no, I didn't win the like science fair thing. I don't know. Like it just not, I mean, yeah, they do have that little bit of moment, but in between, like, I don't know what's really happening. Like Bart is poking these people. Like, I don't know. There doesn't feel like any kind of like screenshots, you know, where I can pick so many iconic moments, you know, like the Willie thing where I said like, this is joke, and I can see him turning into a skeleton, him on fire, him trying to open the doorknob. This, I'm like, yeah, okay, there's a tooth, and like I just can't lock into anything, and it doesn't have the spooky vibes. I can't think of a whole lot of just like amazing jokes, and they're, to me, if there are, they're definitely not like rapid fire back to back like I like, you know, from the Simpsons, where they're rolling into each other. It kind of like ends on a bit of a flat note, and I don't know, this thing, it doesn't really do any kind of special thing for me for Halloween, or just on a Simpsons scale, like just having the Simpsons.
Maybe I'm just weird, but to me, what really disturbs me, like outside of just like, you know, scary horror, I like this uncertainty, like, you know, this question of like, you know, if you really think about what if we are just in a dish inside of a dish inside of a dish, this like weird existential question of like, you know, what if this is what life is? Like, what if we're all just someone's science experiment, you know?
Yeah.
And I agree, it's not very funny. Again, may I direct you to the square pancakes joke, which I would argue is a perfect fucking joke. You know, oh, these aren't waffles, these are just square pancakes. Oh, honey, the waffle iron's in the shop. Imagine a little garage where they work on waffle irons. That is funnier than any joke in the whole episode. It is fucking perfect. But also, you know, I think it is more strange. It is, you know, it is that weird sci-fi, uncertain sort of, you know, existential, weird feeling episode or segment. And to me, that really scratches an itch. I like things that make me, you know, kind of like what Bob said, is very heady. I like things that make me ponder weird, uncomfortable possibilities in that way, weird multiverse almost type scenarios. So that really does it for me. I guess that's not spooky, but I would watch that. If you know, during Halloween time, if there was a movie that presented that, I would probably watch it.
Yeah, I love the debigulator is like what they call the ray gun, and then she's like, "Well, can you make me big again?" They're like, "No, that would require some sort of rebigulator," and that concept is just hilarious. Like that joke really got me. Yeah, it's not like scattershot funny like some of the other ones, but I overall dig it. I think it's a solid in what it's like, if you sit and ponder it, it truly is horrific, but it's not like blood and guts horrific in that way. But yeah, I dig it. Anything else you guys want to mention on the Genesis tub before we move on?
I will just say one more joke that I think is perfect is when she says, you know, get me some shoes. And one random guy goes, you probably want socks too. Oh yeah, I'll get some socks. Like, I think that's a really great joke. Yeah. Just like that afterthought of a joke. Really good.
Yeah.
Anyone that wants to tell me that Genesis tub is not great, I will just not listen. So Juice, I'm sorry. I forgot everything you said.
It wasn't much because I don't have many notes on this one. It's not forgettable.
All right, let's move on to the last segment here of episode 7, Citizen Kang. I fucking love Kang and Kodos. Like I said last time we were doing this, they're my favorite characters. Anytime they're on the screen, I don't know what it is about them. I fucking love when they're on screen, and I love that they. Good. they like take over actual like presidential candidates' bodies in this episode. I like, which seems like kind of a strange choice, but I fucking love what they do with it. I don't know, how does this one land for you guys?
Oh shit! Real quick, since we're talking about Kang and Kodos, I mentioned in episode 5 where they popped up with their heads. Did they show up in episode 6? We didn't mention them.
Not that I recall.
They are in it for a second.
What are they doing?
Oh my god! See, this is gonna make me look like a bad fan. They make some joke. Oh no, they turn in. Oh wait, fuck. They're definitely in there.
I'll do some research. I'll let.
No, I will look this. I will look this up live on the podcast.
That just like
make a joke with them.
Since we landed back on Kang and Kodos, I forgot about
the 50-foot eyesore. I think they're in there. Maybe.
I believe you are correct. If you guys want to talk about Citizen Kang, I will find this right now.
All right. Yeah, they take over like Bob Dole and Bill Clinton's bodies, and they go on to have like these debates, and they like bio duplicate these people's bodies somehow or another, and they I don't know, man, they just like completely take the piss out of like the election. And like, it was happening in real time. And I know you probably have more information on this, Warren, as well. But like, as this aired, it was like a couple days before election day, which is like kind of a ballsy thing to do, I feel like. I mean, back in the day anyway, I feel like South Park does crazy shit all the time. But like for, 1996 or whatever, I feel like this is sort of another thing that's kind of ahead of its time, where the Simpsons are commenting in real time on like an actual presidential election. I don't know. It seems like a bold choice.
Yeah, it was just a few days after the airing of the episode, and another, David Cohen is all over these Treehouses today. He also wrote this segment, and I think when you compare it to Futurama, you can sort of see a thread in the comedy. Like a lot of the stuff that he does in this segment specifically feels very Futurama. And he acknowledged that it broke a lot of Simpsons rules, whereas it like dated it very specifically, which is something that, they tried not to do. It was something they didn't really like to do. But ultimately this segment was so funny. They just felt like they had to just leave it as is. So I do think that is a very interesting point about this one.
Yeah. I love where, basically Homer outs them. He's like, these are aliens. They're not actual presidential candidates. And they're like, well, you got to vote for one of us anyways. It's a 2-party system. And somebody's like, well, I believe I'll vote for a third party. And they just go ahead, throw your vote away.
Vote away.
Fucking people say that all the time today. Still.
Yeah, it's super relevant 20 years later.
So just to interrupt, you see Kang and Kodos in... I was trying to make sure I was in the right episode. When he throws the donut, it goes by them, and they're holding a sign that says Earth Capital.
That's right.
Gotcha.
Yeah. You're right. They're hitchhiking.
Right.
Thank you.
Had to confirm. There we go. All right.
We just didn't mention that. I had to get that in there. Yep.
We got.
I'm glad you did.
There's another like really heavy joke they make where they're in the middle of their debate, and I think Bob Dole goes, abortions for all, and people boo. And he goes, no abortions, and then people boo, and he goes, abortions for some and miniature American flags for others, and everybody cheers.
Right, cheers.
It's like, that's a fucking heavy joke, man. Like that kind of thing upsets a lot of people. And the fact they went there in 1996, again, I think is like a very bold choice for them to make. I don't even know, like, could like South Park talk about abortion today? I don't know if Comedy Central would be like, yeah, that's totally chill, go ahead and do it. I couldn't say one way or the other. But yeah, I think they're taking like a lot of swings and a lot of chances in this episode. I think it works out for me anyway, even though it's not like super, super Halloween heavy again. It's not leaning into the horror necessarily, but I think I just really like that they're taking some major swings on this one.
Well, I like what you said, Bob, when you said it's horrific, but it's not horror in reference to the Genesis tub. I think that's sort of true here too. It's when they start realizing they can play with these premises that are more disturbing than scary, which I would argue, you associate horror and stuff like that with being spooky. But in reality, like horror is its own thing. So I would argue, like, you know, to be spooky, you just have to be uncomfortable. And I think Genesis Tub and Citizen Kang are both very unnerving and very uncomfortable scenarios. And you know, Citizen Kang though it really is more funny than disturbing. So I guess an argument could also be made there, but I think it's a great way, especially being about Kang and Kodos. By this point, they're so established as being associated with Halloween. It really does. I mean, it feels extra treehousey to me because they're such a focus of it.
See, I guess, do they ever show up outside of Treehouse?
You see them. I feel like there's like one joke or
Okay.
one or two instances where you might. Uh, I even think like they did a Halloween episode a few years ago that was not a treehouse. They also did a treehouse, but they did this one before, and they even make a joke in it where they're like, "Oh no, that's next week." You know, the 3 stories, people love it. We still do it, and I want to say even in that, like at the end, you see them for a second because it's like they're like, "Oh, are we early?" Like, "Oh, sorry, it's next week." So I think they use them for jokes on occasion that are
Okay.
outside of Halloween because they do exist technically, but I don't think I can't think of a single like episode that is about them outside of Treehouse. No.
Because this one, again, going back, so we have now 2 years in a row, and this one is heavy on it with 2 segments where if it weren't like, yeah, it's about King and Kodos, but to me, this almost could be a Simpsons episode. You know, you have
Yeah.
episodes about things like, you know, the monorail or something where people are, yeah, you know, debating and arguing about things like real life kind of situations in a way where they're parodying it. And that's what it feels like to me. And so now I have 2 years worth of Treehouse where I think the problem for me, it's not necessarily even about like what is horror, but these are Halloween specific episodes. And so I like science fiction horror, you know, like we watch all the time. But when Halloween rolls around, like from mid-September to, you know, Halloween, when Halloween ends, I'm not watching Alien. You know, I'm not watching those are the, you know, I save those for another time because Halloween to me is for these kind of autumn vibes, these kind of spooky vibes, the monsters and stuff like that. So while I do appreciate the sci-fi stuff and I appreciate these segments, it's I almost sit back and wish like, man, I wish there was a time where they just had a Twilight Zone parody and then they had a Halloween episode, you know, because I want the vampires, I want the zombies, I want the spooky air, I want the crazy tombstones and the autumn leaves and the crazy trees. Like I want that vibe. And so it's not even necessarily about like what is horror and what is like existentially terrifying. It's like I want a Halloween episode almost. And now
That's
2 years in a row, it's so sci-fi heavy. And this one's political, and it's political from a certain time where yeah, it's still relevant today, but like Bill Clinton and Bob Dole, it's like, man, I want a timeless classic. I want a Dracula, you know, I want something like that. And so I was like disappointed with these, like for this year, especially because last year we covered 4. So I was thinking to myself, you know, like, oh, if this year, if the first year we had done 1, 2, 3, and this year we had done 4, 5, 6, and it would have been a banger because 4 and 5 are like pinnacle for me. But with 5 being, you know, the only kind of high one on these other ones being so sci-fi heavy, where 2 of the 3 segments are not like are not Halloween centric, I'm like, I was really disappointed this year, honestly.
Interesting. I
Taking
mean,
the air out of the
you do
room
see
over
2
here.
presidents die at least. 2 presidents
Yeah.
die. I mean, you know.
Well, and
Yeah.
that's what I feel bad because it's got classic, again, Simpsons, you know, don't blame me. I voted for Kodos. And like these things about, I mean, it's got great jokes too. I love the we have reached the limits of rectal probing or whatever. That shit cracked me up. Like it's got amazing jokes. But you know, it's not Ned Flanders is the devil. It's not, you know, Mr. Burns is Dracula. You know, it's not those things. And so while they're good, they're not Halloween to me.
Fair.
I guess it all just depends on what you're looking for out of these. It doesn't necessarily bother me. Actually, I fucking love Citizen Kang. That's probably my favorite segment of episode 7 here. I don't know why, it fucking kills me.
It's great.
I don't know. Yeah, it just depends on what you're looking for. Do you guys have anything else to add before we rate this episode?
No, I mean, I think, this one, I think if you don't, if you are soured by I wouldn't say it's political commentary, but if somehow you are soured by like, just the political aspect of it, I can see some people not liking this one in conjunction with it also not being very scary. But I'm with you, Bob. I think this one's like really great. It ranks very high for me because I love Kane and Kodo so much, and they are like, not scary, but they are Halloween characters to me just by association. So it does work for me for sure.
Right on. All right, let's go ahead and rate this thing out of 5. Warren, I think we know where you're standing here, but what out of 5?
Man.
How you feel?
Yeah, so I think I could see an argument, like I said, that this one could be a little scarier, even though the second second and third segments are more disturbing than scary. But you get a lot of scary in the Hugo story. And I think that really helps it in that way. This one starts with Homer, lighting a pumpkin and catching his arm on fire, which is really great. That sort of sets the tone. And this one, I've said a lot about how much I love all 3 of these. I'm giving this one a 5, baby. 5 all the way.
All right. Juice, how you feel?
Yeah, if you couldn't tell, I was kind of like pairing 6 and 7 together. To me, they have very similar kind of vibes where there's one, like to me, classic horror driven one that is very spooky, where in the last one it was Nightmare on Evergreen Terrace. This one, it is the twin one. What's it called? The Thing and I. And I think those segments are great, and I wish that they were together. Like I said before, if I was like mixing and matching, I wish that they could be put together, and then like Citizen Kane comes at the end or thrown in the middle or something like they do. Because to me, actually, it's almost going back and listening to last year's episode and then also going back and watching the episodes, I didn't realize last year that this valley or this peak was going to happen. And now I feel like I'm on the downslope and I didn't go any further, like past 7. So I'm in this little bit of existential like situation where I'm like, the best is behind. Like I thought there was more best and there's not. Like I peaked last year where I was like, oh, I was like relishing in like, oh, I remember all these old things. They're so great. They're so classic. And this one has pops of it. Like, oh yeah. But I feel like I'm on the downslope now. And I'm like, man, because I've had 2 years now back to back where it's all sci-fi and it's not spooky. And they drop the tombstones and they drop the wraparound. I'm like, so bummed by it, like all of it all combined together.
Juice. Like, no, let me put this on your heart and let me put your mind at ease.
All right.
So this will be a slight spoiler for next year, but the next 2 Treehouses, they bring the spooky vibes back.
Okay.
Baby.
All right.
I think you are not alone in that, because I think this was the last Treehouse that Josh and Bill show ran, and again, 2 of my favorites ever work on the show, so that is sad. But at the same time, I think the team going into the next season was like, let's make the Halloween episode more Halloween. Let's make it a little scarier, and so I think you will be pleasantly surprised when you hit 8 and 9 and even 10. Oof. So don't worry. I think next year you're gonna feel real good. I think you're gonna get everything you want. You got witches, you got it all. You're gonna feel good. Zombies.
I hope so. Maybe we should have done the 4 this year again, but time restraints. But I really, to me, this one and the last one really kind of go hand in hand. Where they're very, very similar in my eyes. So I'm gonna land this one at a 3 as well. I'm just not sold on this one. I'm sorry, my guy. This one is just, these are not the vibes I'm looking for here. Outside of the one, like it comes out great, I love that, that first segment, but especially, and it's weird to think about, like I said, had we not done 6 and 7 together, like if we had done 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, I could have been thinking about them differently. But when I have these 2 back to back and I'm like, no, it's Halloween, I want more, then I'm just kind of left disappointed by both of these episodes. So that's a bummer.
All right, let me
All
slide
right,
in
Bob.
here.
Yep. All right, get in there. Let me know what you
Uh,
think out of 5.
I think I'm gonna land with a 3.5 on this one. I think The Thing and I is a really solid start. It's not one of my favorite segments, but I enjoy it quite a bit, especially knowing that it's like based off Basket Case or inspired by Basket Case, which is a movie that I'm definitely a fan of. And just knowing that like gets me a little hype. I don't know. The Genesis tub takes a dip, especially in like the horror realm, but I like the ideas that it's playing with for sure. And then it takes a huge jump up with Citizen King. I fucking love Citizen King. I think that shit is hilarious. I love King and Kodos. Anytime they're on the screen, I fucking love those characters so much. But I'm gonna overall give this episode a 3.5, just a slight step down from 6. But
Bob,
not
it sounded
terrible.
like a 4 to me, honestly, man. I think that should be a 4.
Just go ahead and round it up for me. That's so with that, that's gonna put our aggregate at a 3.8, which is basically a 4, honestly.
Yeah.
Pretty solid. All right. Yeah. Thank you guys. That was fun. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah, so last year we did an overall ranking of the ones
Mhm.
we watched. Do y'all want to do that? Do y'all want to say like of the 3 we
You
watched
mean like all
tonight?
7 or just?
Well, so
just
I
these
put
3?
all 7 together, but we can also do
Okay.
these 3 since we just cover these 3. So whatever y'all want to do.
I would have to do some digging to get the other.
How about let's
4.
just start with
Yeah.
tonight. Well, how are y'all
Okay.
feeling about them?
I say when we hit Treehouse 10,
We got to do
Yeah.
a
we
top
we
10.
do like an all over 10. Yeah.
I like that.
We
Yeah, that's a good
Yeah.
idea.
Yeah.
All right, Warren, do you want to run your episodes down tonight in order of how you ranked them?
Yeah, so obviously we got Treehouse 7 coming in strong with the first place. Then we got Treehouse 5, and then we got 6. And again, I really I like all 3 of these. So, I understand what Juice is saying. I think it makes a lot of sense. It does sort of get away from the scary. And I do think that is a little concerning. I think when you look at them, when you isolate them and talk about them back to back, you start to see like, this is Halloween time and these don't really scratch that itch. But I do also, respect the fact that they were like, digging into these different kinds of scary and trying some new things. But I can't wait to see Juice perk up next year when he sees witches and zombies. It comes back from my boy.
Well, pep in his step next year. Juice, you want to run yours down?
Yeah, for this week, I'm gonna go 5. Actually, yeah, I'm gonna go 5, 6, 7 because what it came down, 5 is a banger. I gave it a 5-star. 6 to me, I think I had a way out. I think I just prefer Evergreen Terrace over or Nightmare on Evergreen Terrace over the twin one. It's close, they're both good, but then also I think I prefer the Giants advertisements over the tooth. So I think 6 is going to take it for me there. So I think I'm going to go 5, 6, 7, and just I know we're going to do it once we hit 10, but I had it ready to go. So I had overall,
let's hear it.
My list was 4, so good, 4, 5, 1, 2, 6, 7, 3. So even 3, so 3 still poor old 3 is back there. But yeah, so that was my overall ranking this year. Bob, how are you gonna rank these?
My ranking is the same as yours. It's 5, 6, and 7. Each one is just a little bit worse than the last, but they're not like overwhelmingly like different in ranking.
Yeah.
5 is fucking solid though. It is really good. Yeah.
Super good.
We're gonna wrap up here, jumping into our Hotline Screams segment.
Yes, we are. Oh, I gotta do the bump.
Hotline Scream.
That's what we're gonna do.
If you are listening and would like to call and leave a voicemail to be featured on next week's show, hit us up at 904-638-3231. We got 3 voicemails we're going to get to. First up, we're going to hear from Chris. Let's hear what he has to say.
We sure are.
That's what we're gonna
Hey,
do.
Straight Killing Crew. This is Chris formerly from Phoenix, now Chris from Louisiana. I just got done listening to the Halloween Kills episode, and the prompt was for calls to talk about Halloween Kills, and then also picks for Ben Tramer casting. I'm going to get to the Ben Tramer last, but ultimately, with the Halloween Kills, I was really disappointed. There was, like you guys, there was things that I really liked, things that I didn't. I was really disappointed that they went the zombie Michael Myers route. I also am usually really good with, like, I really like gore. The gore was really over the top in this one, and the blood too, especially like the eye gouging. Like, I mean, I've never personally gouged anyone's eyes out with my thumbs, but something tells me that there wouldn't be that much blood after gouging someone's eyes out with your thumbs. But, and then the guy jumping out of the window and just completely liquefying, you know, on the sidewalk and gasping, that was a bit much. It got me thinking, though, one of the things that I did like about it was I was getting really upset the first hour with Lori. Just kept, you know, she kept saying, like, I need to end this evil, I started it, and then I really liked how, you know, they told her, like, this isn't about you, you know, and then the focus was more on the house. I was just starting to get really leery when they started going that direction, but I'm glad that they course corrected. But anyways, it got me thinking that I really liked the 2018 version. I was really looking forward to this, and after I watched it and I was kind of thinking about my disappointment in sitting in it, I was thinking that I think a big problem, and I think a lot of people were really disappointed in it, expectations were really, really high, and with that in mind, I wasn't cognizant of that going into watching it for the first time. I was just like giddy and excited. I think now, when I get a chance to rewatch it, hopefully it stays on Peacock for a while. That's where I watched it, but hopefully I'll be cognizant of that, and then maybe I'll have a different experience with it. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to revisiting. But anyways, my casting for Ben Tramer, I really want to see Gary Busey cast as Ben Tramer. Full-on crazy. I want to see them kiss. I want to see Lori and Ben kiss. I mean, maybe even a sex scene. I don't know. But anyways, yeah, I'll talk to you guys later. Have a good one. Bye.
Ooh, Chris. There's some wild
Gary
wishes,
Busey.
my guy.
I like that idea. I also like how all of our casting ideas for Ben Tramer are not like pretty boys at all. They're just like wild, like Danny fucking DeVito, just wild casting.
Just got a crush on old Danny DeVito. Who doesn't?
So I just started blasting. It's good shit, man. Yeah, Halloween Kills is a mixed bag. Well, for some people, not for all. But yeah, there's some cool stuff and some pretty rough stuff in there.
I agree, though.
But the trailer says it's the #1 movie in America, guys.
Dude, it fucking made some money.
It made a lot of money, yeah. Which is good.
Yeah, for a horror movie too that was on streaming, like, man, it did pretty good.
I haven't watched it yet. I did like the 2018 one, and so I actually was pretty excited about this one. But I've heard no one I've talked to has said good things, unfortunately.
They kind of misstep a little bit.
I agree, though. I don't want to give too many spoilers over here for old Warren, but yeah, I agree with what Chris was saying about the focus, where the focus was. I like that they got away with that too, and that's something we've just been preaching here for a while, for like some of the missteps that the sequels, for years we've been saying it, but just how deep down the hole the sequels got because of that tie and focus on Lori and stuff. So it was nice to see at least like a different turn on that. So yeah, thanks for calling.
Thanks for calling, Chris. Good to hear from you. Next up, we're gonna hear from Heather.
Sure are.
That's what we're doing. We're doing it.
Hey, I've never called in before. My name is Heather. I'm calling from Detroit. I was calling regarding the Halloween Kills feedback. Look, I understand that people can like whatever they like. Horror, like, I think it was Stephen King who was like, the worst horror movie is still the best movie I've ever seen, right? But this the dialogue was so atrocious. Like throughout the movie, I was thinking like, Resurrection is better than this. After the movie, I turned on Resurrection just to like knock my brain into the right place. And no, like Busta Rhymes was more convincing than Jamie Lee Curtis. Like, I'm sorry, I hate to say that. And I've been saying that. I hate to have a negative word about Halloween come out of my mouth. It's my favorite franchise of all time. But what the fuck was that? I cannot believe that Jamie Lee Curtis, watched that movie, saw the final cut, and said, classic. That is a classic. I don't get it. But still, I love you guys. I'm glad to call in for the first time. No hate. Like what you like. I'd rather watch the Rob Zombie movies than this. So peace out. Stay spooky. Happy Halloween.
No, ma'am. No, ma'am.
Damn.
She was upset.
We don't speak
Yeah.
that name around here. We're especially
I'm definitely not gonna watch it now.
Well, I don't know, man. Some people really do like it. So I mean, watch it for yourself.
Nah, I'll watch it, but that is quite a critique to say the Rob Zombie ones are better. Those are dog shit, man.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ward. You're amongst friends here. Especially he's even further on our list now, especially after that Munsters picture release. Jesus Christ. Oh my
Yeah,
Lord.
that looks rough.
My God.
I love that she put on Resurrection as a palate cleanser after watching Halloween Kills.
Dude, okay, I agree with her to a large extent about it, but again, I said it last week. I feel like the type of dialogue and the type of delivery of the dialogue is fairly consistent, probably a scotch worse, but fairly consistent with the tone and overall writing and delivery of 2018, which I cringed at time and time again, where I was just like, oh, I can't believe they wrote it this way. And so I feel a little vindicated because I agree, but also I'm like here, like throwing my hands up going like, why did everybody let 2018 pass so hard?
It's notably worse to me. I'm not saying 2018 was flawless in its dialogue. That's not the case. But I think this is notably worse than 2018. But
I don't think so, but
just one man's opinion.
Yeah.
We got one more voicemail. Next up, we're gonna hear from our courteous Canadian Cole. Let's hear what he has to say.
Oh, Cole.
Hey guys, Cole calling. I guess get a few things out of the way first. I don't know about my favorite karaoke song, but I always seem to have a really good time when I'm going out when Shake It Off comes on by Taylor Swift. So I guess next, is this movie good? Halloween Kills, that is. And I think, honestly, if anything that's not uncle brother raping Laurie Strode to make a baby to kill off the bloodline, I mean, goddamn, anything but that is a good Halloween movie. And what I think is going to happen in Halloween Ends, what I think they should do is just totally Season of the Witch it, drop Michael Myers, do something totally different. I think that's probably what I would do if I was in charge of it. Other than that, just wanted to call in and say I'm happy you guys are doing the Simpsons Treehouse of Horrors again. I think that's awesome. I had a lot of fun with it last year when you guys did it. Like I said, for me, nothing puts me in the Halloween spirit as much as those. So just wanted to call in and say loving the show, loving the Slack. Thanks again. Keep chilling. Bye.
Smart guy.
Thanks for being #hard with us, Cole. Hanging out on the Slack.
So damn hard. Yeah, see? Simpsons Treehouse is fucking spooky season gold, Justin. I don't know.
I agree. That's what I want too. I'm not disagreeing. That's what I want.
Next year, Juice will be happy. I promise.
Ooh. Next year.
I'm looking forward to it.
8, 9, 10.
I didn't watch ahead last year when we did this. I stopped at 4, but now I man, I kind of want to watch ahead now.
I might
see what
have
more
to.
it's talking
Yeah,
about.
I might have to.
Yeah.
You got to watch Omega Man. This is one of my favorite Treehouse segments ever.
8,
So
9,
good.
10.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. Thanks for calling, Cole. It's always good to hear from you, buddy. I hope you're doing well. Again, if you guys want to call in and leave a voicemail for next week, hit us up at 904-638-3231. Gentlemen, do you guys have any prompts you want to throw out there, have people call in about next show?
Actually, I did have one. And at this point, Warren, how many Treehouse of Horrors are there now in existence?
There has been one every single season except for season 1. So we got 32, baby.
Ooh, that's a lot.
Damn.
Okay, so obviously I am not familiar with all 32, like, and all the little segments that go into them, but I wanted to ask the question, if you could have the Simpsons do a parody of any horror, like your favorite stories, your favorite movies, or whatever, maybe they have and you're just not aware of it, or I don't know, you want a different take or whatever, what would you write in if they had like a contest or something for a Treehouse of Horror? What would you suggest that the Simpsons do for this? And if you want, how would you do it? Like, if you like, oh, I want them to do this, I wish Homer was this character and Bart was this, or something like that, Mr. Burns, whatever, what would you have them do a parody of? So that's what I wanted to pose that for this week.
That's a great one. Yeah, that's a great prompt. I'd like to hear. I can't wait to hear the answers to that.
Hell yeah. Call in, let us know. What would you do? Awesome. Thanks again, Warren, for sitting in with us, man. This has been a lot of fun. We look forward to doing it again with you next year, assuming that you're not sick of us and our bullshit.
Yeah.
But
no, man,
but
it was awesome.
do you want to remind everybody one more time where they can find your show?
Yeah, absolutely. And again, I'm not only am I not sick of you guys, but I'm going to go ahead and just, I'm going to say this has to become an every year thing until we're done. So I'm just going to bully my way in and make, and if you guys are listening to this and you like me, tell Bob and Juice how much you like me, and maybe they'll bring me on to talk about something else sometime. I mean, who knows? I like some scary shit. Maybe
no,
I'll
you only watch The Simpsons. That's all that you
okay.
do.
Dude,
That's fair. That's fair.
Basket case episode, we gotta have you on
Dude,
now.
holy shit.
I'm saying I will watch it and come on for that. Please let me know. But if you guys like the sound of my voice, go search for Simpsons is Greater Than on any platform, anywhere you can get a podcast. You can listen to Simpsons is Greater Than. I've had on people from the show, voice actors, writers, directors, animators. I've had on other cool people that do creative shit that like the Simpsons, and I get their reasons why they love the Simpsons. And we just sort of, chill and talk about it. So I think you'll really enjoy that. And please go check out my Simpsons collection at Bart of Darkness on Instagram or Twitter. And that's really where it really all started. That's where you can see all the stuff that I have if you're not watching the video, where you can see some of it behind me. But that's where, that's where I really mainly live. So go look, go listen, and come hang out with me, please.
Awesome. Next week, we're going to be back with a brand new show. As always, we're going to be talking about the winner of the October poll pick, which was the original Carrie from 1976. Go ahead and slam your eyeballs into that. Get ready for next week's show. Until then, you can rate, review, and subscribe to us on iTunes. You can hit us up on Twitter at STR8_chilling, on Instagram at Straight Chilling Podcast. Send an email through our website, straightchillingpodcast.com. And we're going to sign off with something a little bit different. And I can't believe we didn't do this last year, actually. It's kind of blowing my mind. Justin and I, 6 or 7 years ago, we were participating in this like nerdcore rap competition where they would give you a prompt, like an idea, and you would have to write a song about it in like 2 weeks. I think they give you 2 weeks to do it. And we made a Simpsons rap. And I can't believe we didn't play it last time we did this.
And there's a couple, it was about what's one of your favorite, like, I don't know, just series or whatever. There's a couple Treehouse horror references in there.
Yeah.
Damn, I can't wait.
It's called the Poobly Kids.
The Poobly Kids, yeah. So yeah, we're gonna play y'all out with some jams. Hopefully you enjoy, and we'll see you next week. Keep chilling.
Unfortunately, that will not be on the behind the scenes because I do not have that bump.
Yeah.
Gotta go to the real episode for that. and we'll sign you up on that.